Back in school, I was a popular kid for like the 3 months Minecraft was kind of popular. The reason? Minecraft Pocket Edition had finally gotten its big update, which at the time was something dumb like full screen this video, trust me, it's better that way. Modern Bedrock Edition has come a long way. How many blocks is this? But back then, there was no Minecraft on phone. Heck, when it did, I most certainly couldn't afford it. They say divorce leads children to the worst places, but that is nothing compared to lacking 5 USD in your Apple account when you were 12 in 2013. Back then, that led you to the blockheads. Oh, the blockheads. You cannot play the blockheads anymore unless you've got some old Android device sitting around somewhere. But it was a wonder to behold. Basically, Terraria with a Minecraft paint job. At the time, this absolutely did the trick. You got the vibes and entertainment of 2013 Minecraft, and absolutely nothing else get bent. That's all it took though, some rudimentary survival gameplay and a plagiarized art style. 2013 saw Minecraft going nuclear, and I'm not just talking about the Nether Reactor core, which hey, remember the Nether Reactor core? Millions of clones of every quality popped up, so many that ignoring them became practically second nature, especially for very legal owners of Minecraft. Who needs some stinky clone? Except recently, I started to wonder, hey, what about those games? What if I missed something great? What if there's some other Minecraft-like that deserves the praise? So, for the next 2 weeks, I'm ditching Minecraft and going on a clone diet. From weird proto games that inspired Minecraft to modern ones that still grow communities today. And you get to witness and laugh at my suffering! This is gonna be a horrible, horrible experience, isn't it? So here we have 14 games I'll play every day, at first 10 minutes each, but every day we'll remove one until we've got 3 winners on day 12. Kinda like a reality show, I like the format of reality shows a lot. Yes, this adds up to over 3 hours of gameplay every day, but I'll just give you the highlights of anything I did in that day. Imagine you're watching 14 different Minecraft playthroughs at the same time, or that you got ADHD, that's a fitting hypothetical. The order will be dictated by this speaker wheel, say hi. You won't see it again after day 1, but trust me, it will still be around in secret shadows, knowing whether or not you like the video. So, magic wheel, spin, 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 what will it be? Infiniminer. Well, good choice, wheel, but this kind of undermines the whole clone bit of the title. This is Infiniminer, released in April 2009, about a month before the first build of Cave Game did. That's a Minecraft before it was formally named, but calling it like that sure convinces people that you know what you're talking about. I doubt there's a video out there that says this isn't true and everyone who thinks so is stupid and uninformed, but I'm not gonna pretend the leftover clone makeup isn't at the ready. The game is rather simple conceptually, a voxel grid filled with dirt, 4 classes, 2 teams, and the goal is to bring more gold and diamonds to the surface than the opposite team, whether it's by mining better or by sabotaging the other team through different tools. Back when this game came out, everyone was kinda playing the game bad. The competitive element really didn't do much for people, and they instead had a lot more fun just building, something Notch took note about, and that's what led to the creation of Minecraft. So yeah, one of the Minecraft clones in this video about Minecraft clones is actually the thing Minecraft started as a clone of. Don't you love the inner workings of my production process? Day 1 on most games was spent learning about the game, such as in this case, where I was looking at the block types and which classes can do what. You use ore scattered around the map as a resource to build up these blocks of your team's color. In this session I picked red, and that's about all I did, not gonna lie. This game environment isn't as creative as Minecraft's, so getting inspiration from what you see around you isn't as productive. Everything in this game is just generated off some 3D Perlin noise or whatever, so there's not much to this. I do like the little song when you put up the game even after it perforated my eardrums and sonically reduced my IQ by 7 points. Alright, this is what I'm talking about. As cloney as clones get. We've got SurvivalCraft, which in short is what Minecraft would be like if a 15-year-old who has no idea about game design tried to make Minecraft. But more on that later while I play this game on the following days. What you see is what you get here. Some pirates leave you in the middle of nowhere, and now you've got to fare for yourself by collecting resources and crafting. The game's visual style is not as homogeneous as Minecraft's, with creatures generally not being cube-shaped, but hey, the world is. I dig the more realistic art style, reminiscent of those classic texture packs. It works well for what this game tries to achieve, and the atmosphere especially is pretty cool. Most of the time it has gameplay effects such as your character getting wet when it rains. Everything else is exactly like Minecraft, especially on the progression I did today, which was what you'd expect. Beating a wood to death, making some tools, collecting stone, finding some bolts who make comical slap sound effects when you hit them. did the tango with a cow, and tried to spend the night mining in a cave. The thing is, I'm playing this on mobile, so even though you can see quite well in the footage on that big screen, playing this feels awful and is confusing, which meant I didn't cover the cave properly and had a wolf miraculously pathfind to me, even if he couldn't have possibly seen me. Hey, no problem, I'll just get back there and pick up my items, right? Nope. Not only is the night insanely hostile here, but the game has a fatigue mechanic that limits swimming and running to a certain amount of time, meaning I just kinda got angry and left the day in the middle of the sea while I was drowning, mostly cause 10 minutes had already passed and I thought it would be funny to see what I'd do the very next day. So, back in 2011, Notch and a few Mojang associates approached the LEGO group with an idea. They wanted to make a game like Minecraft, but instead of using squared cubes, they wanted it to use LEGO bricks. Nicknamed Project Rex 1.0, the game was created under the supervision of LEGO, and their limitations on the usage of that brand seems to have affected Mojang's interest in the project. Notch really preferred working on other IPs at Mojang like 0x10C at the time, a game which also happened to be cancelled. Fast forward to earlier this year, 2025 for people in the future! One of the devs posted one of the last builds of the game made prior to cancellation online, and thus, here we are playing it in this video. Leave a comment if you're from 2027, 2032 or 2064. It's only a super flat world with sandbox blocks of different colors. Pretty simple, but I am curious about the learning curve and flow of the game. Minecraft working on a 1 unit 1 grid space ratio makes it instantly comfortable and intuitive to mess around in. You know exactly where blocks are going when you put them down. And Mojang does have a rule that players shouldn't be allowed to play stuff that doesn't adhere to this rule unless it's very obvious, like armor stands or interactive blocks such as doors and beds. I guess paintings are an exception, because of course paintings need some quality of life changes as always. Naturally, I started just digging down only to realize you can't actually do that. The world is composed of different sized pieces and fitting in the hole isn't as evident as it is in Minecraft. One such example of the thing I said earlier, the player being 2 units in Minecraft is not the same as a player being whatever shape. Next, I built a tree and began learning about the building mechanics in this game. Once again, it's unusual. You can't typically place a brick in the air unless it's connected to another piece's, what are these called? Everything I know about LEGO is from the game, so I'm just calling them studs. I know I could look it up, but I'm choosing not to. You can remove bricks so that stuff stays in the air, and you're also free to connect pieces from the bottom, even if they don't look like they have the opposite of studs, which probably also have a smart name, but I'm calling them studs. And behold, after 6 minutes of tinkering without even knowing all of the controls, just hitting random crap on my keyboard to see if it does anything, ta-da! The ugliest tree in the world. Yeah, I'll be building for this video and I want to make it clear I am not the best builder, especially when it comes to organic shapes. Just forewarning, but yeah, please excuse some inability. I had cream if Eldritch was a full game extension to Thaumcraft, trust me, but no, it's actually a voxel style roguelike based on the lore of H.P. Lovecraft's Eldritch creatures, a dungeon crawler where you must get through 3 levels of hell in order to escape this library full of all sorts of creepy creatures. The game went under the radar as a Minecraft clone for many, but it shares almost no elements. It's true that there's stuff that is kinda like Minecraft, but here you've got 5 resources and you can't either build nor craft. Why is it here then? Absolutely everyone I asked and everywhere I looked, they listed this as a Minecraft clone, and I figured it would be nice to have variety in this video. I am so thoughtful, he said, with not a single thought to fill his mind. I started by turning myself into the closest thing to Steve I could find. You'll never see this beautiful face again, so take it in. And then I went through the tutorial, learning you can hold 2 items, throw items, slide under places, collect stuff, the basics, and then hopped into my first run. Welcome to Dagon. There's these guys that do suggestive noises, that's our main enemy for this area. You can beat them up and choose whether you want to loot them for resources or leave them so they cannot respawn. I noticed the game's fob is really low on purpose. The idea is that you're looking around corners and paranoid and shit. You can tell from the footage that it did work the first few hours or something, and I was actually pretty on edge. Even as I armed myself with rocks and dynamite, being nervous and uninformed made it very easy for me to start taking damage. This here's a fountain, it increases your max health by 1 until you lose the run. This here's an altar, it unlocks abilities that you can use at the cost of the blue coins you'll see me pick up all throughout the playthrough, and this is a gun. I don't think I need to tell you what guns are used for. Don't let it get close! Shoot the bastard! Shoot the bastard! I continue to descend this realm. Each world has 3 levels that look the same, and each of those levels have 3 floors which are procedurally generated. Anyways, once the 10 minutes were up, I took some extra time to get back to the library as I'm not sure how saving in this game works. I basically went back home and saved inside the beginning of the level just to make sure if saving in the middle of levels works. We'll report the results on day 2! Someone wanted to recreate Minecraft. And so they did. Not by memory or anything, just a recreation of it, and the result is Mindtest. Just for today, you may notice the game is in Spanish. I'm being honest, I didn't even realize it until halfway through the recording, and you need to reboot the game in order to fix that, so whatever, that's not here nor there. Of course, in typical rabbit fashion, I noticed anything different right away. First thing I did was pick up some berries from a bush and stare in awe at the ambient butterfly. Fireflies wish they could be 4 pixels. Oh, this game actually has fireflies, 8 whole ass pixels. I happened to spawn with no trees around, so it took a minute to start doing this stuff. Once again, chopping down trees with my fist, axe, pickaxe, chop chop, attempt to run but accidentally throw your items on the ground because you play Minecraft weird, mine, stone tools, gather some apples from trees which actually look quite different in this game. Can we get this in vanilla Minecraft? By the time the session was ending, I came across this while wandering at night. This beautiful piece of generation that I just knew I had to use to build my home in. This is gonna be great. Now, you may notice this game has a big difference to Minecraft even from just this footage, but notice how there are no mobs at all? There are mods for Mindtest that completely change the game and some that add mobs, but I wanted the original experience, and so even though I took the time to light up my house area, there's absolutely no threats to worry about except fall damage, especially if you land in 8 blocks of water, as I learned firsthand right here. Of course. Foreshadowing? This game is basically if Satisfactory met Minecraft, but really just one of those automation mod packs with the big books that make your eyes go spinny and dizzy and not in the kinky way. This game starts when you crash land on a planet and proceeds to give you a tutorial. You will get a core that generates energy for you, and you also have ore extractors that can take the good from blocks of any mineral and send it to the hoppers around it, which you can connect together with conveyor belts to transport materials. It will take me like 4 days to figure this out. You also have a nifty machine that can scan any block you don't know and learn how to use them. First you mine them, then you craft them, then you can research your Minecraftorio! It's all fun and games until you press the H key to see the handbook. Yeah, here's where you figure out anything, but it's just text. Hooray, we didn't escape the book. I'm gonna be looking at this so much, and as you can see, the game's interface is extremely ugly and looks way older than the game actually is. Take a guess. By the end of the video, I will have told you. The UI and tutorial in this game is so lacking that I just started clicking buttons to see what they would do. I tried putting processed coal directly into the smelter. That's how dire it was getting. Eventually though, I figured it out and began exploring around my base. The planet in this game looks super alien due to the colors it chooses, and it's kind of awesome in that sense. Slime, look! Here's me freaking out over some slime creatures that are very much harmless, or at least they seem harmless. It's like your twinsies! After scanning the area, I located some tin ore, which I'll attempt to collect tomorrow. This game seems interesting. So, back in this old video, which is really good and probably has more production, I played SurvivalCraft, a mod that aims to make Minecraft more realistic by adding a ton of grass and mechanics that complicate the creation of tools. Back then I complained about it, but the wonderful commenters were sure to tell me all about the legacy of that mod. This game called Vintage Story that adapts much of those mechanics into its own engine and packaging, while making sure the game doesn't feel as tedious. Needless to say, all those comments ended up indirectly leading to this video. I am so grateful to see my comment sections are genuinely substantial. You guys are awesome. So, shtick applies. You gotta start the game by mining for rocks and napping tools. Within 5 minutes of starting the game, I was already getting mauled by a boar and suffering from performance issues that somehow de-aggroed the boar, probably because it stopped detecting the boar's children, which is part of the boar's AI. This session involved a lot of me tinkering with the settings to get it to run fine, and generally it did once I got to the longer play sessions, but you gotta be able to spot some stuttering in the first few days. I apologize, I need a better computer. Oh well. I'm watching back the footage of what I did in the first day, and I want to show you this. Basically, when I play Minecraft, I sprint with Q, and I have remarked my throw button to O because I tend to slide my fingers between A and W, dropping my tools whenever basically anything happens out of nervousness. So after painstakingly napping the tool in the worst way possible, here's how you're meant to do it from further days. This was the first time I did it. Such is a learning curve, I suppose. I immediately after, 2 seconds later, attempted to run and just dropped my knife into the sea and lost it. This was like half the session, mind you. In order to figure out how you're supposed to do stuff, you're going to have to consult the handbook, which has the progression guide and kinda tells you how to play the fucking game. So I'm just kinda facepalming at myself all throughout this session as someone watching it afterwards. Sure enough though, I got through the first day pretty well, ate some mushrooms and actually managed to make a knife, which means I can nap the crap out of some tools when tomorrow comes. Although I'm speaking as the guy who's already played a bunch of hours of this game, because of course it's making it further further than a lot of other clones just based on how obviously its scope and style is bigger than the others, the guy who was playing the game back then was surely excited to keep playing the game and figuring it out as I went. Sure, I read the guide, but I bet people familiar with this game can probably do everything way faster than I will be. For every game here, I'm going in as blind as possible because I feel like that's part of the experience that I want to have, and in this case in particular, it was such a treat. Not every Minecraft clone makes sense. Here we got Boima, where within 5 minutes I had created a surreal winter wonderland with like lava lakes and everything. This game is super unique, but a creative sandbox in every sense of the word. You get to be a bear in this world full of other bears, and you proceed to collect resources by punching trees and stuff as any true Minecraft-like experience would have you. This game does have a grid, but there's many things that break the rules of that grid, so overall it's extremely surreal. Even the music is a weird mix between C-148's music and weird ambient electronic stuff. It's hard to explain, but you're listening to it in the background for at least for a bit. This game has a universe of worlds for us to explore in this video, but for this first session, I picked the least interesting looking one, a forest, and proceeded to do what people do in Minecraft, including an ugly house I quickly put together. Again, it's a weird game, but I did pick these titles based on having a variety of interesting clones, and this one tickles my surrealism funny bone. You will notice, but this game is still pretty early in development. Development builds of it are barely getting into Steam, so by the time you see this video, we might have a completely different game, like what happened with web fishing when I play that. Allow me to extend the depths of this the very same luck. Ooh, blockheads. Alright, let's make a world and... oh yeah. The game crashes. I really wanted to play this and Eden for this video, which is why I started this video talking about them. They are the iconic ones I had fun memories about, but sadly, playing them for this video was tricky. They're old apps and were not kept updated. Eden is only available on the App Store, but I don't have an Apple device to play it in, so the result is that I quickly had to pivot to any game I could find that just looked a little like the blockheads, if only to have a game in that niche to play around in. Trust me, I tried to find ways to play the others. I almost ended up rebuilding Eden's source code from scratch on a virtual machine, but I couldn't get it to work. I'm more bummed out about it than you are. The first result in my replacement search was this game by the name of Lost Miner, developed by Marcelo Silva. Bit of a spoiler, but I am very glad this was the game I ended up picking up for this. It's surprisingly great for the reasons I'll explain as I share my playthrough. The game starts with a little tutorial on the controls and inventory mechanics, and obviously you gotta punch trees in order to get started. In the process I punched an ostrich by mistake, and let's just say they did not like that. So you know how Minecraft games go. Tools, resource collecting, but things began looking promising when a skeleton attacked me, and in my panic I discovered something amazing. This game doesn't tell you this at all, but you can double jump. The sense of discovery I got from this was extremely cool. Even if the game doesn't guide you, just like Minecraft, it's gonna have a lot of stuff that you discover as you play, without having a book telling you what to do. It's true that this game's achievement system is meant to clue you in on stuff just like Minecraft, but as a new player I didn't know that, and this stupid mechanic and mistake went a long way on making me look forward to playing more of this game.
After getting my hands on some stone tools, I began collecting food and looking into the game's combat.
Observe as I mistakenly stab a capybara and become depressed, but not nearly as depressed as I did when I witnessed what transpired next. Of course, it's a free game on mobile. I got an ad. Nope, I'm out of here. Not doing this. Photorealistic Minecraft clone. I played 2 versions of this game after finding it online. Even though it's just 2 relatively basic test builds, the first one I tried was the newer one, with a weird character creator and clearly unfinished gameplay, to the point I didn't even have full control of the character all the time. And the movement started constantly. I figured, hey, maybe the old version is more complete, and it was. There's no character creator, but at least I can play around in this world. I walked around, found there's a tool to make custom items, but all in all, anything I tried to do was met with this funny message that doesn't seem to work. The game looks nice, but it's clearly not finished, so I'm not sure how far this one's getting. That said, I did have fun in the title screen because every option makes an epic drum noise when selected. No, Veronica, I know you've been sleeping with another man. Of course I couldn't leave it at one precursor to Minecraft. I totally had to check out Blockland, an even older game whose connection to Minecraft is a lot more vague. It really has little to do with Minecraft. Sure, you've got the grid stuff and whatnot, but the way you play it is not through survival gameplay, but rather through whatever the person who made the world had in mind for the player. Essentially, it's pretty much a game engine. It released in 2007 after several years of development, but the community that grew around it at the time was certainly up there with the Minecraft one. Players got to play pre-release versions that had tons tons of fun using the game's features, but of course, stuff happened that made it slowly lose popularity until the point its name disappeared into the ether. But here I am, giving it a go. First there was a tutorial that clearly shows that aspect of Minecraft's intuitivity that's missing from the LEGO brick system. This game features building using LEGO-like bricks, and you see here how building works. You basically select what you want to build kind of roughly, and then position your brick slowly using your keyboard to move it along the grid, and then you can put it down. It's slow, as you can see from this part where I built a staircase for a lot of time. You can also break shit and ride a horse, so what else do you need out of a game? Here's me making a lamp through the game's features, here's me drawing a penis, here's me building a penis and being generally pleased about it. Cool, took way longer than it should, huh? Another photoreal Minecraft clone. This one has the best looking water and also is comically incredible. You open the game and you're immediately greeted by epic orchestral music. The intro cutscene is so good, I just have to show it to you.
I had the perfect life because I had everything. Money, friends, cars. I even had a huge mansion. But that night, it all changed. Suddenly, our cruise ship hit something and we started to sink. I'm the only survivor from the shipwreck. I woke up on this deserted island, alone.
And then it cuts to gameplay. Yep. This game's dialogue is done with those 2021 AIs that couldn't quite get it right, and all the textures are super detailed because their normal maps were cracked up to the max. And my god, the bloom! The bloom! It's so bright I feel like when I finish editing a video after an all-nighter and look outside and the sun is directly coming out my eyes and burning them. I tried doing the classic progression, but the inventory system doesn't fundamentally work. Things don't really go into your inventory or craft like they should. And you're also limited to your 10 inventory hotbar slots. I managed to make a pickaxe that looks like a hoe and just kinda stared at the screen with a vacant stare wondering, what have I gotten myself into? I saw this on a random YouTube video and absolutely popped off. It's basically a Minecraft parody by the fellow who made Crap Game, but there's no cubes and death is permanent. It's a unique concept. The first day I had no idea what I was doing, mostly just walking around trying to figure out what to do. I kinda followed the tutorial where you get basic tools,
But about 5 minutes after the start, enemies started to show up.
enemies in this game are brutal. Once they see you, they will chase you down to the ends of the earth if need be. And they have a lot of health, which doesn't fare well when a large group gangs up on you. I put up one hell of a fight, I tell ya. I fought my way through the night, barely keeping myself alive through food I found on the ground, but they inevitably did me in. After surviving nothing more than a day, I saw my first ragdolling corpse of many. Again, this is permanent, which means by the time I started my second run I was like, wait a second. These games like that? I think I needed to reframe my mindset a little for the following days. Minecraft for 3DS is considered a bit of a freak show. It's the ugly cousin of Minecraft versions. Like, it's still Minecraft, but you look at it with like a slight tint of disgust until you start to feel bad for the little guy. I guess I could call it a clone, but slime open your eyes. It's clearly still Minecraft, made by the OGs. We're here for the real shit, and I wanted to feature a 3DS game. Thus, enter CubeCreator X. Oh boy, I know my quality doesn't really show it, but I don't have the budget in me to get a 3DS with a capture card, and the problem is that not all 3DS games run well on emulators, so even though I really wanted to have this game on the video, I'm afraid that's impossible at the moment. Lucky us, they made a Switch sequel for this game, and I actually get to capture all that footage. You will be replaced by a Switch 2 eventually, but for now, in this game you play as a cute customizable cube. Here's me, I'm basically like Outward Kirby except way more colon tree. Oh, I just noticed that's the guy who made that one boner song. This game starts with us waking up in our hometown, a nice village full of cubicle friends where we cannot really interact with any blocks as we have no land yet. Behold, however, the Lord wishes to speak with us. I don't really know why the king or queen is referred to as the Lord, but it makes it sound religious completely out of nowhere, and I can't help but fuck with that kinda. The Lord tells us that we look like an adventurer and gives us the privilege to interact with the world portal that can teleport us to other worlds. This is where we'll do all the mining and crafting. That's a really interesting way to do limited worlds, by the way. The way Minecraft saves our game is super quick and incredibly underrated. In this project I see a lot of Minecraft clones struggle to keep up with player interactivity. But the developers of CubeCreator, having worked on an underpowered 3DS before, already knew that limiting worlds to a predictable size was a good alternative to keep the gameplay experience seamless. So even if worlds are limited, not only are they all very different from one another with all sorts of different resources, but they also function a lot better without any crazy architecturing like Minecraft's. Anyways, I've chopped down wood, made a crafting table, and that was 10 minutes. Those went by fast, but that's kinda the point. I'm supposed to slowly play more of each game to really only remove the one that's most obviously the worst. This one is very obviously not the worst, even if I barely have gotten started. It is true that it's a little slow, but whatever. Alright, that was 14 different games. That went by relatively fast, I'm not gonna lie. Most of these games will have a chance to redeem themselves, but one of them will not be extended that gratitude. Now, last time I did this format, I would talk about what I did and later on return to the eliminated game. But this time, and judging by the length of the video in just the first day, I'ma simply always feature the loser last to save both of our times. But to start we do it the classic way. See, I had fun with all of the games I played today. Even if they had almost nothing to do, there was something interesting to go into or talk about in every title. Except for one of them. The worst Minecraft clone is somehow one that's so inoffensive you may have already forgotten that I talked about it. I certainly did, but you know that's just gotta be my short-term memory speaking. Mithruna. This is a clear example of how game development shouldn't go. Even if Mithruna was a passion project, game development should not be performed this way. The game development pipeline is usually to prototype your main core system first, and then you design what you want your game to be like, its visual style and gameplay. You can have ideas for those, but you gotta want your game to work first before you start thinking about how to design those elements into an experience players can fuck with. Mithruna is not made like that, and it shows. The fact that both games have a developed art style and a plethora of menus but not a single game mechanic gives it away all too easy. There's nothing to do in this game but look at some debug information about the way the world is being rendered. The second version has a fully fledged character creation system, but the actual thing is borderline unplayable. And the bare bonus, added to the clearing experience regarding game development, is a great recipe for disaster. Luckily, this is a free passion project, and I don't say any of this to insult the dev. In fact, I'm hoping they actually manage to create a great game in the future. I get it, development is slow, and it's not like dev pipelines are the only way to do it. They are not set in stone. Who knows? Maybe 2 to 3 years from now the developer has taken Mithruna somewhere cool and they managed to shut me the fuck up. I'm not holding my breath, but who am I to not wish anyone good luck? Just maybe next time start with the bit that makes the game fun and keep the presentation and design as something to work into later, alright? Bed. Welcome to day 2. Alright, now the video is getting into full swing, so you will not see me interject to talk to you like this as much in the future. So, strap on, the video is getting started for real now. We're gonna go quick, so pay attention. I started this one right where we left the last off, totally not because I played it 2 days in a row because playing 14 games takes quite a bit of time. I like that this game uses a tool for torches instead. Having to scroll through items with L and R, then equip whatever you need to hold can be a bit bothersome, but the game style immediately comes through thanks to the things like this. You can tell survival gameplay was far from the designer's minds. There's food everywhere and you don't really have to actively fight enemies. It's very lighthearted in that sense. I saw this enemy which looked kinda strong and was kinda cute. It managed to light me on fire, but by the end of the whole ordeal I was like, wow, that did absolutely nothing to me. What I didn't like that much was that the wooden tools aren't real.
You only get one wood tool,
which you can use as a stone tier. This game doesn't really have specialization on tools, meaning you can use a stone axe to mine stone about as well as you can with a pickaxe, and that rule applies all the way to the higher tiers. It's a little weird. Before I knew it though, time was up. Definitely gotta applaud the Lucky Block mechanic. Right now they are not as popular, but back in 2014 the niche was massive. It's nice to see they noticed the mechanic was fun from Minecraft mods and just snuck it in there. This one blew up in my face, but I've had way worse things exploding all over my face. I decided to explore the worlds in the default universe that came pre-packaged with the game. It's true that you can download worlds from the internet, such as this one I quickly booted up to try it out, but For this video, I didn't want to play too much community content. It could be kind of unfair. This is an official content only contest. First, I went to this giant woodland where we get to be some sort of
Gardener for this small bear community that lives atop a massive tree stump.
The tools in this game let you do weird things, like these scissors that allow you to cut geometry in half, and it's kind of fun. I fell down to the bottom at the end and, well, I found a dead bear that I mourned the death of. I decided to knock down a tree in his name and then walk along that path off to nowhere. Next, I went to this liminal land that's more abstract than liminal, a world with a giant monument that's entirely pointless, with a fan for propulsion and so you can climb it. I explored the area, but there wasn't a lot to do, so I left. The third world of today was Little Dream, a little villa in the woods with a lot of small details. There's computers, antennas, magical shrines that make you insane, and even a small portrait of the Blockheads. This shares a lot of similarities with my real life, almost like a real dream. This led me to the fourth and final world I took a look at, a spiral tower in the woods with a long climb. A climb I went on as this awesome song by Chappie Monster played, and the view from the top was magnificent, beautiful. It was a genuine beautiful moment that made me think about the possibilities of games, the way we have no consequences in them. There is nothing stopping me from dropping down to the bottom and just climbing back up again. Except for the fact that it takes quite a while to get up, and I do have to release this video sometime. Thunder's outside. Knowing that this game had permadeath meant my next step was to learn as much as possible even if I died today. This meant that in today's runs, I was going to try my hardest to just try shit, such as opening a guarded chest, popped up on a pedestal and getting my ass beat by an entire village. The second one was much of the same. I tried to see how fast I can move from wood tier weapons to stone or iron before night fell and unescapable enemies approached. But the timing simply didn't add up. Night comes too fast in less than 5 minutes. I figured I would try to outrun the enemies, but it seems that it only got more enemies to chase me instead. And without food, I eventually ran out of stamina and there was no longer any escape. Boom. May not seem like much, but it is data, and that's important. So I settled down in my home base and began making a starter camp for my starter base, so I can keep stuff organized mostly. I think it's comical to see that the first thing I tried to craft was a crafting table, even though you got 9x9 crafting in your inventory itself. Must have been out of habit, but I did feel dumb afterwards. I went and made a chest instead. I set up a little sugarcane farm, or I guess in this game it's called papyrus. But I just placed it down to the side of my house. Next was time to think of a block palette for the place, and that meant looking around the recipe book to see what I could craft. I was super smitten by these acacia wood planks. They are such a nice shade of orange, but I wasn't sure I wanted to make my home out of that. Still, exploring the world became my priority because all the pretty blocks were rather far. Near my house there's only these jungle logs that are honestly kinda repulsive to look at, especially from up close. Oh. On a very laggy boat ride I went until I found a cave, made a signage so I would remember where my home was, and just ventured down into the cool cave I found, though I only had time to mine some coal. The darkness of the cave seemed appealing, and I was wondering if anything interesting lay below. Nothing screams survival quite like locking yourself in a hole and sleeping on the floor, like a true man of the wilderness. The morning had me learn that dogs stop being hostile in the morning, which is a neat tool to know, I suppose. I tried to look for my items, but I got turned around escaping a bear, so I just decided to start over again. This time, I found some random meat in the ground, so at least food wasn't going to be a problem for a tiny bit. Made the standard wood tools again, and I found some coal in the surface before deciding to go down to mine at 2013. I wasn't too hot on the idea, but it was safe, and I didn't have any real food. Part of me wanted to go to normal caves so I can explore them and see how the world generation and mineral spread is, so I decided to do the smart thing. Consulted with my pillow. Let me introduce you. That is Justin, that's Paul, and that's James. James charges $3 an hour. What a fucking asshole. But this other one, that one gives free advice. It's just that it's really bad advice because it's mostly to make videos about really dumb stuff. And then that guy, he just told me to get an actual job.
So my tree was pretty neat, I said, delusional.
But I basically didn't know what else I could do to maybe make building faster and less annoying. So I consulted the ancient scriptures of MinecraftWiki.com. I learned there's a sprint button and not much else. There's an old build that didn't have any slopes. So anyways, I started building a tomato. Again, organic shapes, but it's even worse because we're talking about an engine I was barely getting to know. Today the game did this wonderful thing where it only let me turn a certain amount to the right, so that's when you see me doing these wild spins like I'm trying to be some sort of lettuce dryer. The wiki did tell me something useful in the end, though I already was planning to try it out due to the way Blockland's bricks work. Basically, you can still move pieces around before committing to placing them, which lets you be more precise about your building. Getting used to this made building complex shapes like the tree way easier, so that was pretty good. Behold, the absolute disaster that came out after 15 minutes. It's enough to make a grown man cry. Because this is as large an insult as you can give a tomato. Let the building commence. After toying around with a few blocks such as speed and jump blocks, I began creating some sort of improv base for the blue team. I made this floating runway that can only be reached if you use a jump pad, and then dug into this cave to make an improvised shelter. I don't know what I'm supposedly sheltering from, but damn if it isn't fun to just build something. Placing blocks, thinking about where windows go, considering the integrity of the shape. Despite a massively limited color palette, I made a pretty good home with some abstract square shapes and made the most rudimentary house imaginable into something that's actually nice to see. Placing a block wrong, however, is the actual worst. If you thought Minecraft's method was really annoying, you gotta know the builder class in this game cannot break the very blocks you put down, and you need to use the architect instead. You also don't keep your resources between classes, so you've got to collect them as the architect to build with him. I did put down a bank to deposit ore I wasn't planning to use to speed up the process a bit. It really made having to change classes a non-issue, but not by a lot. Okay, how safe is a safe house if you can just like fall to your death by walking out the back? Back in Eldritch, the testing save was successful. The game properly remembers if you save in the middle of nowhere, which is gonna make playing this way less annoying than I thought. I continued my dungeon crawling, hunted by new creatures like these weird floaty eyes and these creamy noodles. Oh yeah, use that on a beat! On one of the rooms, I found a shop that helped me figure out you can use different boots found in the dungeon to change your movement slightly. Information that could be useful in the future, because for now I had limited budget of blue rune coin things. Lower down, I was attacked by every fish guy in the level at the same time, which made mac and cheese noises and looked relatively funny, and upon a distant pyramid at the very bottom of the realm, I found the first of the 3 souls I needed. I did walk around to collect any other resources I may have missed while I enjoyed the atmosphere of the area, but mostly because I figured the game was about to get a lot more difficult as I entered the second realm. Nyarlathotep. No, I swear that was not an attempt to sound like a cat girl. That's the name of the second realm, of which you get to see the entrance of. Ta-da! These spider creatures now appear and shoot extremely fast, and within a moment my health was down to 1. This was not about to be easy. So, in between play sessions, I internalized my learnings, so after a bit of guide reading, it was time to actually produce some basic tools. Hunger was going to be an issue, so this was of higher priority, but I also remembered the suffering I experienced with SurvivalCraft with copper, so despite having no more than 10 spaces of inventory not pictured here because I fucked up in the recording, I was very sure to pick those up. This game was immediately atmospheric, so I began to just walk around and see what resources I had available. I attacked the fox with a knife, but that wasn't my brightest idea. That one, I suppose. I want to point out there's spears in this game and I totally knew about them. I just decided to use the knife out of inexperience. I'm pretty sure the spear's range and damage could have handled the fox hunting a little better. Hey, the minimap has waypoints that show you where you drop your inventory, so that's neat. Once I collected my belongings, which laid on the ground on a pretty cool and realistic manner, I observed the time and thought to chop some wood in order to make a fire. The night was young, and even though there didn't seem to be any dangers, I wasn't looking forward to finding out. Turns out you can use hand baskets to extend your inventory, and they are pretty cheap. Again, you can't say it because I'm a dum-dum, but I can't pick up this piece of wood right below my feet. Here's my great attempt to make a hand basket without reading the instructions properly. My guy, it's 2 cattails per slot. Give me some time, I'll be the best player in the world in no time. Without my hand basket and very scared of the night, which is terribly dark as you can see by the way, I made a fire starter and built my first ever fire pit, which took a moment to light up my world. This felt great, the fire was cozy, but my food situation, well, that wasn't gonna fix itself with me just sitting around here looking at the pretty flame. Furthermore, the rain was affecting my fire, consuming it until my achievement was gone, and I was left with the depression and hollowness of having failed. I spent 15 minutes learning stuff, but the results spoke for themselves. Starving, and with only the scarce light from the beautiful stars hidden behind the clouds, I sat down to cry the night away. Cold and hungry and alone. The jank really started to show now, and it slowly got worse and worse. To say this game is broken is an understatement because this shit is a complete and utter disaster. Killed enemies fail to die, they just keep following you forever. Resources aren't even used in crafting because moving things from the crafting table to the inventory doesn't work. There's a leveling system that plays the Happy Wheels win noise, but leveling up seems to do absolutely nothing. You can get chased by zombies, but you can't kill them, so you're forced to save and quit so their AI breaks, and then they just fuck off to nowhere. Being low on health makes this really ugly blur effect that makes the game look like you've got astigmatism or something, and even the physics of enemy knockback went whack at some point. As for actual progress, I guess I managed to move into Stone Tier and make a map, but this was all rather annoying to achieve. I kinda wish the game would work because this is gonna make it really hard to keep playing. It's never gonna be that good, but even laughing at the game's mistakes is complicated when you run out of mistakes to see due to the jank halting progression. I guess I'm letting it live for one more day, but unless it works out all of a sudden, this one may not be going too far. So like, a bunch of today's session was spent on loading. The game loads extremely slowly because it's really bad at reading from your memory, like your computer's memory, not your brain memory, you get what I mean. The thing is, I'm running the game from an external drive and that makes it really slow. I wanna say this because, again, it's really cool to see Minecraft work in the first place and manages to load all the worlds relatively fast. The launcher still stinks, but that's probably a different team's fault. Point is, I ended up playing a tiny bit more to compensate for the slowed load time. And then once it actually puts you in the game, it makes you go into this weird screen that's probably meant to be way shorter, but whatever, it ended up giving me the background for a bunch of this video. Once the game loaded, it was time to get satisfactory with it. First, I pulled a little research to make sure that whatever I'm doing is the intended method. I also explored the surrounding area in order to try to find copper, since you need both tin and copper to be extracted before you can progress. This was a little confusing because I think at some point I just couldn't figure out what you needed to do. You need tin and copper bars in order to make conveyor belts to move the ores of tin and copper into their furnaces to become ingots. You see the problem? It took me longer than I care to admit to find that the game just gives you a good amount of them to start with. Oops. So I painstakingly did a conveyor path to my tin, confused as to how you actually lift and lower resources on conveyors. There was also this matter of getting the energy from my home location to the machine and all the items from that machine back. I guess I've still got a ton of stuff to figure out and I may need a guide. By the way, remember when I asked you to guess this game's age? Yeah, this game released in 2015. Did you get it right? Hey, who was thinking this one was about to go out on day 2? Ads are the worst, but I can live with them a little. This game has villagers who trade money for items. Currently, I'm kinda broke in game, so for now let's focus on resource collecting, so I can survive the night and not die by a zombie. Look, dying by a zombie hurts, but you do not need to run an ad on me to rub salt in the wound. What's with all of these ads? I would never do an ad, unless someone very generously paid me to include Big Beluga VPN, who cares about your anonymity and ability to watch location-locked content with Big Beluga VPN now. I got an ad offer and I thought it was real, but it was a scam. Shortly enough, I started yearning for the mines and went down there to collect every resource I could find, like coal and copper and stuff. Hi Kyle! Hey, this game's level up system actually works. You lose levels when you die and gain advantages every 4 levels. It's kind of a shame combat is kinda boring. There's almost no ways to fight enemies without getting hit. Though I did notice that most enemies cannot jump 2 blocks like you do, so that's a pretty comfortable safe spot whenever you need one. Once I had enough copper, I spared no expense in upgrading my pickaxe right away. I wanted to celebrate, but the day kinda ended and I saw an ad right after the game saved and it made me angry and I left. You know what this game has that the other games don't though? Tomatoes! Sadly you can't smash them, but I do appreciate the representation, even if inaccurate. It's time for today's elimination. Especially for those who have been keeping up with the math, the final tally tells us it's time for Blockland to disappear. To be honest, it's more on my end than on its end, because while I picked up this game by looking for similar games online, a big realization sorta creeped up as I was playing today. The game comes bundled with a bunch of maps that slowly become more evidently not Minecraft. It started with this racing minigame that's probably meant to be played with a bunch of friends. I was alone thinking, oh man, this is like that one boat minigame but for real. I don't even know what server has it, but probably multiple. Alone, there was no point. So I hopped into a parkour map that I couldn't get going because it used some sort of glitch I didn't know about, or maybe it was just extremely precise and I couldn't put it off. Then I explored this mansion level where a bunch of people got together and built a mansion with a scavenger hunt inside. This build was dead as amazing, and I love the details of all the lighting. The toilets all have some sort of flushing gag, the pianos actually worked, and even how each person made themselves a room. Shoutouts to this guy called Geek. I don't know who this guy is. You seem like an extremely cool person based on the contents of your room. I love this place. I wish my room looked like this instead of just a basement. Bit concerned about that cake in the chair. I'm usually the type to eat the cake and sit on the other thing, but whatever. I was so amazed that I even blew it all up with a bazooka. I actually love this mechanic where you can destroy stuff and it builds itself back after a while. Would love for Minecraft to have something like this so you can blow up your house without having to copy your world. Okay, so the problem seems pretty big at this point. Some of you may be picking up on it, but the last game I played kinda did me in. In this game, you play as a kaiju version of yourself that grows the more of the world you destroy. It's kinda like an arcade game, and you even get stats of how much damage you did to each map at the end of the level. It's like a less interesting version of Katamari Damacy. But as I played it, it started to dawn on me what I was actually doing. Blockland is not a Minecraft clone, it's a Roblox clone. There's building in it, sure, but it would be so time consuming to get into this mechanic that even if I kept this around for the next 2 days or so, it would get nowhere, and playing the minigames is clearly the superior way to enjoy this isn't my playtime expectations. It's a game engine and it takes quite a bit of time to get used to that, exactly like with Roblox. I mean, it's so obvious in retrospect that I actually considered replacing it entirely from this experiment, because to be completely frank, it feels nothing like Minecraft. There's none of the vibes or pizzazz from Minecraft, much less the grounds to even call it similar. So to compensate, I'll commit seppuku. Or maybe not. Bed. So, no sprint button? I swear I checked every single session if there's a sprint button, even in the later ones. I just couldn't help myself. Anyways, it's mining day. I started to make my way down lower into the mines. As you can see, the light gamma is super specific, so it's extremely cool to see anything but darkness past the torches. The first pickaxe went and I had a total of 3 coal. There went a second one and the total was 34 coal, 3 tin and 3 copper, and by the end of both the last pickaxe and the session, I racked up 33 coal, 17, 12 copper and 10 iron. To be fair, not a lot of resources, especially coal, though it makes sense when you see how much the game just lets you descend. At some point I figured I'd get everything on the way back up and just kept on falling. Before I knew it, it was time to stop and I didn't even get to the bottom. Minetest is such a zen experience. The textures being 16 by 16 instead of 32 pixels make everything feel smaller and cuter. This is as zen as it gets. So zen that the zen it was called to stop us from hiring Daya into a new box office darling for no apparent reason. This is to say, there is no enemies, just mining and seeing the resources increase. You don't even have to pick up the items, they go directly into your inventory, so panic is at an absolute minimum. And here's me mistakenly turning on F5. I'm such a handsome fellow. Though green isn't my favorite color, and I actually do really miss being the cool kappa I regularly am. The wisdom of Minecraft Wiki continued to bless us today. I put in a few commands, including ones to summon a tree that doesn't look like crap. Yeah, you can see here that the camera still has issues, sometimes it just jumps like that, ruining every single shot that I tried to do consistently. I wanted to try to see if there's a faster way of building, and this tree was created by importing the generic LEGO Digital Designer file format, a format that's way more sophisticated to use than just typing in some coordinates. This really requires an additional program. For the record, I think LEGO World uses that very same format for its own builds. I decided to play this over that because Mojang made this, but LEGO still made this game with some other studio. I guess that's more of a fun fact than anything relevant. So, none of that shit worked, and I started to build a bungalow cabana thing, just slowly, brick by brick. Well, it's not pretty and it's not the best, but at least it's way better than the tomato. Yesterday, I planned to just dig down in good Minecraft strip mining fashion, but this was boring and ineffective for finding any ores. I found a bit of malachite, but eventually I got bored, not helped at all by the fact that the game is asking me to sleep when I figured out you can just place any dirt block down and take a nap. No, that's not me cheating by using the F5 to look through the walls to find a cave. And so, I woke up in the morning and did a bit of that. after some more cheating. Every cave I found was shallow and uninteresting, and trying to find food was really annoying. Look at these ducks escaping at the speed of sound, and then not getting hit by half of my attacks, and then watch me jump into a lake and break my legs because this isn't Minecraft. I will not learn from this mistake. Foreshadowing? Did find a chicken and just didn't collect the meat due to inventory limits. Then as it was getting dark, I finished the day on the one acceptable cave I could find. There was a moment of rain today that I actually quite liked visually. The particle is very pleasing and the photorealistic graphics still have a level of cartoon stylization. Not bad at all. So I had to lock in for Fortresscraft because frankly my skill display yesterday was tremendously pathetic. Loading the game already takes forever, and this game is complex enough that I decided maybe it was a sensible idea to watch a let's play. And the let's player I found who did 58 episodes of this game had no absolute idea of what he was doing in episode 1. He was as lost as I was, so I said to myself, hey Slime, it's part of the process. Let's just have no idea and experience this game naturally. I looked at my inventory and it took me 2 seconds to notice this game also gave me complementary conveyor belts that are diagonal and can lower and raise items. Hooray! The matter of getting the energy there was a bit of the same. A little observation on how the tutorial called machines worked and the stuff I started the game with showed me it was super easy to connect power banks in between machines thanks to these laser energy transmitters. I dug a path just out of comfort, and after a small amount of trial and error, putting and removing stuff, making the laser bounce like it's ray tracing, and making sure stuff comes out of the ore extractor properly, I wiped my brow and expected my machines to work. They didn't because there's a big mistake. You can probably spot it right away from the clips towards the end of the session, but in my confusion I just guessed that was a problem for me to solve tomorrow. Trust me, it's a small and dumb mistake, but my mind was thinking about this game like Satisfactory, which doesn't give the player that many starting items in order to make sure they understand the basics. The tutorial really allows the players to naturally begin developing their own factories from scratch. The fact that better games exist in this genre is surely going to take a toll on this game, and I genuinely fucking hate that. But I'm not gonna change it. I'm a YouTuber. I gotta have at least 7 mistakes and blatant biases per video, so enough comments politely telling me otherwise boost the video performance. Jokes aside, YouTube added this feature to hype videos. No idea how it works or if you even have it, but if you do, care to give it a try for me? Thanks. I got the helmet, look at me! So a storm happened and I bravely braved it like a brave boy.
This game has a tiredness mechanic that forces the player to sleep occasionally by returning to their hometown as part of its sort of game loop.
But I go to bed late in real life to show I'm a grown adult and can make my own choices, and I wasn't about to let a video game tell me otherwise. I went down into a mine, regardless of any rain or thunder or caffeine crashing. I learned that this game has reach around block placing while Minecraft Java still doesn't, and that genuinely had me crash out in real life. Ignore this part where I fell down trying to walk across a bridge. The goal was to farm a little iron, but I couldn't find a lot. I found more sleepy bats, which I slaughtered just to confirm if they did anything but be a statistic like they are in Minecraft. Yep, always a statistic. And then I returned home. The Lord greeted me and exchanged some mushrooms that I found on the ground for some land in their kingdom. Fuck, I'm so jealous of the housing market in this Minecraft clone. Needless to say, that meant I had a new area in town for myself to organize and build. To my heart's content. Exploring worlds in Boima was fun, but it's clear that the game's objective is very much to create the world, so I began thinking of an abstract and weird idea. It started with a super basic concept, which was to make a white platform with raised edges. And now's when the problems began, at the very start. I imagine the game had super good tools for universe creation based on the other worlds I've seen, but a lot of the cool tools come from being able to customize the grid and size of any blocks you want to put down. This means that I spent dead as 15 minutes trying to do something super simple. A circle. I tried. First I saw if I could modify the default circle, but I could only slope it upwards, not downwards. The tools are also a bit confusing until you get used to them, so I ended up making a mess that you straight up cannot see. There's multiple layers of the same circle stacked on top of one another, which makes selecting the right one a bit of a nightmare. Eventually, after trying to make a weird octagonal circle that didn't look how I wanted it to, I ended up just deleting the main platform and trying something else. Then I tried to use myself as a compass and rotate in a circle in order to recreate the circular platform. That looked great, but making the edges rise up had to be the big problem, where not only did I have to match the circle backwards, but I also had to do it twice in order to make it look like an extrusion, rather than just another bigger platform on top. That connected by mistake and I gave up on the idea. Idea 3. This game lets you make grids to build and trace on top of, so maybe I can do a cube with the raised edge and achieve something kind of acceptable, but then ignoring the grid became a new problem near the end of the loop before you have to loop back. There's also no way to edit the trace, so there went yet another failed attempt when I misclicked and closed the circle on the outer edge. Fuck it, I said, let it look like shit. I'll keep bringing this stupid concept to life tomorrow. The worst part of this is that I know someone who actually knows this tool is probably going to tell me in the comments that I just hold the C key and the game does exactly what I'm trying to do in 10 seconds. I feel it in my bones, and I'm scared because usually I barely feel my bones altogether. But if that's not a thing, hey boy Madep, mind adding pre-made shape tools and the ability to slope downwards? So the blue team has a very nice looking base now. I think the red team deserves the same kind of treatment, yeah. I sorted out a bank to deposit materials for ease of building while also changing classes, and after storing more ore than I'll probably need, I began working on the little house structure with the purpose of making it the red team's base. You can climb down into the hole, get some ore and bring it back. That way when you spawn at the top as any class, you can take it out of the bank and save yourself the trouble of going down. Gotta say though, the hole is kind of awesome. I wonder how it would look if someone made it bigger. Maybe that should be me. Bigger hole. I love double entendre. I carved out a little street and laid down some highways which speed up your movement and make you feel like you're walking on sunshine like that song in Clouded with a Chance of Meatballs. That's actually kind of ironic to bring up in a game with a simple fly economy. Wait. That's for another video. I then built up a nice and tall tower that looks kind of industrial with a completed building behind it, despite the complete lack of color depth. I figured maybe I gotta put some rule of thirds stuff through a second building to the side, but let's leave that for tomorrow. I do hope I also get to go deeper into the big hole tomorrow. So, I'm not surviving nights in Muck, and the way Minecraft has taught me to deal with evil monsters at night is by hiding in a hole.
You cannot mine into the ground in Muck, much to Chuck's disappointment.
But I did spot some house pieces last time, so my theory became that encasing myself in a house was going to be the way to go. You got a whole ass in order to chop enough wood though, so my first attempt, 15 total, ended up with me quitting the game without seeing the ragdoll. Second attempt, I actually managed to build the walls and floors to make up to buy one house, but it may have no ceiling. Hopefully though that's not a problem, and it wasn't. The real problem is that enemies damage anything you put down, and their projectiles ignore walls, which meant that despite not taking too much damage, I was still getting hit very often. Even still, getting out of the damn thing became impossible because by that point, you're surrounded by enemies and all you can do is fight them or they won't leave you alone. There's a rhythm to fighting in this game where you manage your stamina by rushing into enemies, attacking, and backing away so you can recover that stamina as you walk in circles that can avoid their projectiles and melee attacks. But I still have to learn it better, and damage to enemies with wooden tools is ridiculously low. That's a very long-winded way to say Ragdoll number 6 said to send his regards to your grandma. Rightio, attempt number 3 wasn't gonna be serious since the play session was close to finished, so instead I focused on a little something I had been ignoring as a little bit of a test. All around the world there's these chests that cost gold to open. You get gold from killing enemies, and last time I opened the chest with loot, I got witch hunted by an entire village. Lucky for us, if you keep a sharp eye like I did this attempt, you will notice that there's some chests that are free to open and don't anger any of the locals. These chests don't even contain loot, instead they carry upgrades for your character that increment your base stats. These are key to surviving. Also, not all green chests are dangerous. Some chests don't belong to villagers, so their stuff is up for grabs. This green chest I found in a little cave didn't have much other than a bit of food and a short-lived pickaxe upgrade. But caves have that fun characteristic where they have no space to maneuver around, so the second a slightly stronger opponent showed up, my ragdolling ass couldn't stop itself from grouping it up and down to death's doorstep. First impressions of the new world were rough. Immediately you're hearing strange gasping from new enemies and the memory of getting bombarded by a spider last time you were here. This place is arid and warm, and sure enough the enemies are way stronger, capable of dodging your attacks and shooting from a distance. It's relatively slow, but it does take 2 or 3 encounters to get used to it. And used to it I did! Just kidding, weeping angels that do extra damage. I spent 50 seconds in this world and I was already dead. Lucky for us, you get to skip levels for free if you want to. As an aside, when I resurrected, I noticed new levels around the library. First was the Mountain of Madness, a frozen peak with a plane that allows us to escape without having to collect any of the souls. This icy world has its own dangers which I clearly learn about, and the aesthetics are actually quite nice. I love the music of this area because of how cold it sounds without using any of the classical snow-themed instruments. I also found out that enemies in this area have a lot of health. This is clearly some DLC type area, so I kinda set it aside, also I died. Next was the Asylum, an endless area where you get a time limit and your goal is to collect as many souls as possible before you die. I did use one dynamite and learned it damages the environment, but while that will turn out to be useful information, I didn't do much here. I climbed up a ladder and died. And that is all the DLC. Yeah, for sure. I went back to War Tools right away with no equipment or extra health, and stayed very clear of the Weeping Angel lizards.
A shame, cause lizard guys tend to be right up my alley.
The friendly lizard at the shop just wasn't my type though, look at that posture. Now's when I learned the true value of the gun. Enemies can be dispatched from a safe distance afar, and they rarely dodge the gun even if you're close nearby. Bullets are limited, but the guns themselves are very useful. With that in mind, I stopped for the day since I still had like 3 more games to play. So I used my infinite wisdom this time and just turned on an ad blocker. The wonders of Android devices. I spent the day mostly mining lower through the caves and dying to enemies that destroy me in seconds. PvE in this game just isn't very great. Hi Kyle! Well, running away from enemies isn't difficult at all. Hitting them certainly is. You gotta be extremely close, which makes hand-to-hand combat without armor insanely dangerous. You gotta keep your distance and wait to heal. Either way, the session wasn't too exciting and didn't have any sort of big moments. I played it as safe as possible. I collected some copper and coal, made some armor, cooked some food, ate a tomato. There's certainly a mindless fun to this that is entertaining and satisfying.
Digging a hole in a game is truly the highest form of entertainment.
Okay, so where did I leave this? Alone, middle of the night, cold, starving? This is not man. This is animal. Heck, this is worse than animal. This is those who don't survive. And so I did what those who survive do. I dusted myself up and picked up the pieces. With no light to guide me but the silver of stars, nothing but the cold and the failure at my feet, I began collecting the resources that surrounded me. Cattails to make baskets and truly collect, grass that will allow me to create all sorts of ingenious creations that could only result from the mind of man. At the door of starvation, I realized that the wildlife too must feed, and whatever they can eat, I've evolved to eat too. So regardless of the screams of a starving man, I collected any food I could find, berries and mushrooms, not the best food, but by golly I got some. I ate them, and just when things were starting to look up, the sun lifting up in the horizon. The wonderful thing about humans is that they get back up. I was human, and I was alive! You know how Minecraft loves the whole thing with players making up their own story? They released a video recently, cool timing. Without relying on structures or anything particularly wacky, Vintage Story replicated that same emotion, making the learning curve feel like this is something not a lot of games manage to do. And I think this is absolutely precious. I started this session coming up from a massive string of failures, but everything I had done until then came together. It allowed me to survive and persevere through the night. So it was very gratifying to stand on top of a rock and exaggerate my reaction. I did this unprompted. I just wanted to show in the game how good I felt about what had happened. And if that isn't perfect, I don't know what is. Alright, it's time to kill off the new game, the next game. Who has to die? Cube Life. This game is completely broken, but the game being a disaster is kind of a blast. I wish with all my heart that crafting worked because every 5 to 10 minutes a fucking comedy routine begins here. It just cannot stop being too much in the worst possible way. The music specifically being so exaggerated and very shittily dynamic makes for events that are incredibly comedic. So for today's session, I just kinda set out to see what I could find because I definitely could not play the game as intended. The result is me just running off in one direction and seeing what's up. The game is composed of a bunch of pre-made islands that you have to load in and out of a few hundred blocks. The first island I visited gave me a tutorial on how you're meant to build a raft to get from place to place. Since crafting is very broken, the only option is to manually swim without anything to stop the blowhighs from eating you. But I do want to point out that they emit the fucking jaw steam as they get close, and it's wonderfully hilarious. I made a world map by painstakingly doing all the crafting. It's insanely slow, especially because your resources aren't actually used up and you've got no inventory space, and it's not like it was at any moment useful since I just went forward until I found something interesting. I got to this village full of natives that just speak in the most off-putting way. It doesn't sound like a tropical language, and they're speaking entire lines as if they were like basic sound effects. Listen to this. He did just tell you to suck it. But then the second I clicked on a chest, immediately, you know, it's better if I let you watch it. So yeah, for as hilarious as this game is, you're sorta confined to a few islands. I bet you probably can beat the game with just save scumming a little, but I just couldn't do it. I was too bored and the quality of the game is evidently low. I just feel fucking dirty playing it. It was pretty funny all things considered, but perhaps it is in my best interest to let this one rest. I gotta admit that something about the Steam page felt wrong and the version of the game I got through not normal means was probably not the most recent. As when I look into the game, it seems Let's Players do have a working inventory system. There's also stamina, which I'm glad I didn't play with. Steam reviews for this game are somewhat mixed, and it seems the developer has cleared up some of the most gross issues like all the AI dialogue that are turning me away from the game the most. I don't know how many of the Steam reviews are actually real though, but the version disparity may have played a part in my opinion, and I think if I had gotten the latest version, we might be seeing a tiny bit of it more here. But at the end of the day, this feels like a clone of Minecraft by someone who is trying to take advantage of the original's popularity. The textures feel asset flipped and the cool elements like the giant spiders and squids feel better suited for a Minecraft mod. I don't know, maybe I'm part of the problem, but the bottom line is I don't want to play this anymore. It's icky. Bad. This was a pretty chill day for this game. I set up my temporary base at the homeworld and explored it a little. I wanted to make a chest but couldn't, and in hand with that, my main objective became to make a bed and take it with me so tiredness would no longer be a problem. Turns out both of those are extremely expensive for no reason, using resources I don't even have access to at the moment. It was more than obvious that the priority was sorting my inventory issues first, and for that, I needed iron. Therefore, I am the one who mines. I did get in a bit of a tussle with a bear though. So I just unpaused the game and within 30 seconds just walked into some spikes and died. Then I tried again and died again because apparently strafing from projectiles is too difficult for me. Attempt 3, I met a couple of tall boys that cannot be killed and then died to a super obvious tripwire trap. Simply put, I figured my playstyle was being a bit too aggressive. And I also learned that I'd have to redo the first world anyways. Gotta recollect the soul at the bottom of the realm for it to count. Enemies in the first floor are easy enough, and getting used to dealing with them without using any guns would have its benefits. So there I went to redo the entire first realm again. It felt like taking a step backwards, but I feel like it's gonna be a good idea that's going to let us sleep. Oh, I also went into the third DLC area that I hadn't noticed at first. It's this Black Void Halloween themed area with pickaxes and... If you make it through here alive, which I totally did 100%, you get a big boost on things you can do. I, of course, had no idea what the pickaxe was for and proceeded to ignore it some more. It's extremely useful, I had no idea what it did until after finishing the entire video, so Something terrible happened when I opened Infiniminer. The server list was completely empty. You see, since Infiniminer is old, the only way to play it now is by putting up your own server and keeping that up in the background. Throughout the last 3 months, however, Windows has been in an unstoppable fight trying to update my computer, and those update downloads lack my computer to shreds. Worse yet is what happened here. They also occasionally close command lines such as the Infiniminer servers. And so, when I opened the game, I had lost my home and all the work I've done prior. And all that was left was a hole. A hole that I needed to plaster into the world. Yes, that's the only thing one can do. You make a hole, you feed the hole must grow! Press K to commit pixelcide. It was time to do a few runs of Muck, and my strategies weren't working. Muck is a game where you have to haul ass by all means necessary, and chopping wood by hand just wasn't cutting it. It was time to try to see what chest I can basically open for free. The first run was terrible. The chest I found wasn't very good, and when enemies came I kinda tried running away. I started another run as I thought about anything I could be doing wrong, but I was getting kinda distracted by the game, so I kinda threw in a village for the sake of science. It seems like villagers don't get too angry if you open their chests, but opening the chief's chest, which is the one on top of the log, is a terrible idea. That's 8 ragdoll so far. The next run and the last one of the day was much better than all the other ones that came before. What if I actually killed the enemies? So far I've tried avoiding enemies throughout the nights, because all my hand-to-hand battles went really bad. This is when I started to devise a strategy to actually be able to beat enemies without taking too much damage in the process. Introducing the swing strategy. Basically, since you have limited stamina and most attacks by enemies have some sort of lead up, I figured I could use my time more effectively by recovering my stamina not away from the enemy, but right in range of them. Basically, you swing in, attack, then fall back and strive. This strategy, even with the worst weapon in the game, worked. For once, I actually managed to get to day 2 as intended, all without even getting started with the tutorial. But the game didn't stop, and neither did I. I finally made my first furnace to move from wood to iron tier and become properly strong. But did you see that? Out there in the distance, 2 rock fellows wanted to have a conversation. Turns out I angered these guys like 6 minutes ago because I passed by a little too close. And as I said, enemies do not stop tracking you once they find you. I didn't notice them as I put the furnace between us, but I mean, looking back at the footage, it's kinda really obvious. By the time I realized, a 9th ragdoll was created by a flying rock uppercut. There was a fight for sure, but I was low on health and I didn't have much of a chance, even if the tool advantage did give me a bonus. Still, after a few days of stagnation and slow learning, I was glad to finally get in some progress. I began this session by burning some materials into proper tools. The goal was to climb up, but every now and then I'd find a little cave off to the side and then explore that in a tangent, all the way back down, multiple times until I found a really deep cave that just kept on going lower and lower and lower and lower. I had collected a good amount of resources on the way, but by the end of the session I was lower than when I started. Not much to say except for this game's controls. Walking on water is weird, but not as weird as the fact that there's no cooldown in between jumps like there is in Minecraft, which means that you could just hold spacebar and kinda like jetpack hover over the ground whenever there's a staircase. It's kinda fun, and I'd find myself mindlessly doing it in my zen, along with just putting on a nice playlist of Minecraft-like music. I began exploring the deep cave I had found, only to learn it ends right there. The cave was also not safe since I immediately got attacked by a dog that just said miss me with that gay shit while I tried to hit it and left to get stuck in a hole. To sleep I had to deal with the dog and kill it, and so you can see me here doing a Hanna-Barbera skit till I just got tired and risked dying to kill it. Sleeping in the game actually does set the spawn point, and since you don't need a bed, it's not a horrible experience or anything like that to die every now and then. The problem is that you don't die every now and then. Every single mechanic in this game is out to kill you for absolutely no reason. Wanna hunt for food? Most animals punch you if you get close enough for you to punch them. Wanna look at a cool creature you found? Well, it wants to look at you dead. Wanna get your items? Well, you better stop because you're getting too tired of having a moderate amount of fun. Wanna walk freely in any general direction? Sorry, you're getting too cold. Gotta go kill those 90 health animals who are going to kill you back so you can make clothes that will let you not die if you're not in an arbitrarily temperate area. Wanna attack a seemingly helpless looking animal? They'll let you until they don't, and then they'll let you again if you can catch after them, but they're gonna run super fast. Wanna swim through some water? Piranha. Wanna get your items back after a piranha kills you? Funny joke. Piranha. Need to run away from some enemies so you can go to a safer place? Animals run faster than you do. Wanna sleep the night off after you ineptly died? Sorry Paul, you ain't tired enough. Hey game, newsflash, I'm the one playing you! Let me fucking do shit! You're lucky I'm still playing the games that are completely broken or bare bones, cause I know I wouldn't tolerate your shit otherwise. It's starting to become a recurring bit that whenever I finish a session in high spirits, the first thing I'm gonna do mere seconds after studying the next day is completely lose that advantage in the dumbest way possible. Like, how do I do this? I must have some kind of superpower. So I noticed this weird brown thing in the middle of nowhere and curiously got closer to take a look. I thought this was some sort of portal, but the dark truth is this was a gateway to insanity. The Rust dimension. Vintage Story doesn't have dimensions like Minecraft does. Instead, the Rust dimension is an alternate world that overlaps with the regular one all the time. Going close to one of these portals has giant cogwheels appear and strong fog covering the distance in a super neat and dynamic way. I just kinda stood there marveled at what was happening, but let's just say I got a bit too close to the sun. So this little cog down here is actually a sanity meter, and I just kinda chalked through it in my amazement. And I gotta say, in all honesty, being insane is fucking awesome! The game completely distorts and gets out of shape with each shader layer going in different directions as the sound is replaced by your character screaming. Thus discordant notes you hear whenever I take damage or in the background right now are all the playable character's voice. I fucking adore that idea because it makes you as the player feel some of the distress your little guy must be feeling. It's visceral and it's scary without really taking you out of the game's style and sound design. Here's me trying to figure out what's happening to me looking up sanity, but the term is temporal stability. I think the devs should probably add tags to guides with words that people regularly would search when trying to figure basic stuff at. That probably would have helped a bit. At the same time, being lost and confused enhanced the experience a lot, even as I went back to my regular wood chopping operations while waiting for my sanity to recover. The goal today was to get enough wood to actually make a campfire, and perhaps find some clay to get into the next stage of progression. On the way, I nabbed my first spear. I know, caveman-ass behavior, but spears are better than knives at dealing with wildlife. They do more damage, have more range, and you can even throw them. And while the night didn't come until tomorrow's session, I did manage to find clay and make a shovel to collect some. A pretty relaxing day overall once I got past the whole going insane thing. Did you notice that the game fits properly in the screen now? Halfway through the day I just had an ADHD attack mid-recording where I started watching a YouTube video for no reason, but then I noticed it was wrong when I came back, so thanks Past Nate. Thanks Past Nate! So, did you notice? Why didn't the tin get to its destination? That's right! The conveyor belts were stupidly backwards! I fixed this. Next was finding the copper and doing the exact same setup on this end. Put down the ore extractor, give it some laser energy, excuse me? Connect through conveyors back into the base. That's fun and dandy, but we do need to connect it all up so that this is automatically smelted and neatly stored. It's slow progression, but it's real. I spent a lot of time troubleshooting little things like sorting out the rotation of something I put down or making patches to simplify the process. I'm a typically slow player, so I hope you don't mind it if wrapping my head around some of this game takes a bit longer than with the others. You know how funny I found it to have over 3 hours of footage every day only to end up using like 18-minute stops? All the motor steeds lame, have no diamonds now. Tied to a spider web a sail when I'm mining down. Nitrofoam and lizard flame, igniting my middle brow. This PvE came, armored creatures blowing in my face. Give it some time, slime, you're losing to the iron craze. That is a convoluted way to say I died a lot today. On the flip side, I did find my first iron ore. I figured I was gonna be in the mine sometime and my inventory space wasn't all that fine, so I said okay and put down a temporary base. And despite really wanting to play more, seeing as I was having fun running around collecting any resources I could find in the caves, I eventually ran out of time without doing much. Just stocking up on resources to venture further down even if my stupid ass keeps dying all the time. I killed a wizard, Harry! That's kinda cool. Creation of my world came nicely. At the start you can start seeing the vision of what I'm trying to do. It's gonna take a moment because copying items does not copy their attributes, and you also can't rotate an item to place it down differently given most things in the game are billboards. It's literally only a problem for the purpose of copying fallen trees. So I essentially stumbled into the two biggest weaknesses of the editor by complete coincidence. Anyways, these trees aren't gonna drop themselves, so I had to manually break them all down in the general direction I needed them to. I did try to find a solution in the controls, and that UI is actually super neat. In a shocking turn of events, this game turned into a clicker, since you gotta hurt the trees enough for them to fall. I spent a lot of time doing this, and not all the trees dropped as I expected them to. After dropping a few mountains of sauce, it was starting to become really clear what I'm doing here. This world is meant to be my childhood dreams, pasta la bolognese. For some reason, when I was a kid, I used to have a lot of comically cartoony dreams where I was in a world of giant food. And you may notice how all throughout this video, almost anything I try to build is based on some food or other. It's an aesthetic that's very much mine, but most games don't really let you do it as well, and I think that's kinda part of the fun, I guess. This game has no pastas, no sauce, and most definitely no meatballs, so I just had to make do with the yellow trees. Then with some patches of dark rock and giant ass lamps, you got the illusion of pasta. I'm still not done because I want to add a few more pastas to the dish, but so far, so good. And yeah, of course Brickcraft's the next one to go. It's a little too bare bones, and building in it is super slow because of the block variety available. It's clearly an early build, and getting the hang of it does make building kinda fun, but there really is few things to do in here. I even went as far as to try commented out test features like this jetpack option that didn't work and just turned you into a pogo stick. But like, that's the problem, gameplay wise, there's nothing else. I finished the cabana bungalow thing with a roof and some color details, then I spread some flower like small pieces around and called it a day. When there's not much to do and not much to say, the only way to go is out. It's kind of a shame that proper gameplay was never developed, because the charm of Mojang's stuff from 2012 could have made for a really unique and iconic LEGO product line. The opposite ended up happening with Minecraft showing up instead on LEGO products, and while that's cool and all, I can't help but wonder about what could have been, the sort of worlds we would have gotten to see if LEGO went in this direction. Pun very much intended. Mad. The hole must grow, but there are a few things one must keep in mind. First, we need to talk about the hole's greatest enemies, rocks and lava. You cannot destroy rocks by hand, they are too tough. However, there is one thing in this game that can destroy rocks and lava: TNT. The fastest way to work through regular materials by hand is by using the miner who, according to the game, digs like a freaking terrier, and that's true. Their cooldown between breaking blocks is extremely low, however, they cannot create TNT. In comparison, the sapper can create those TNT, but their dig speed is considerably slower. TNTs do make a good explosion, but doing the Minecraft and setting up a giant area-wide explosion is not a viable strategy. Not only because most rocks are thicker than the explosion radius, but also because you can only create one TNT per each 5 blocks of ore you break at the time. You cannot get more than those 10 blocks of ore without using their TNT equivalency. That means TNT is a limited resource that cannot be optimally harvested or used to speed up the process. It should be reserved to ridding the world of rocks and lava first and foremost. Such is the gospel of the hole. We must let it grow. Here's the strategy. You harvest ore from the higher levels, drop down to the rocks within the mines and explode them away. Repeat. It's gonna be a long process, but the hole must grow. Down with rock! So after the shameful display yesterday, I was sure to be more careful of enemies and avoided them like the fucking plague unless they were alone and manageable. You do have some range when placing down blocks, so ideally you'll be able to keep enemies in a 1x1 hole where they can't hurt you. I did take a few explosions and poison deaths because I expected it to work like Minecraft, but aside from that, slow and steady did in fact win the race against death. I do wish you healed a little faster, but it's whatever. Better than dying and walking back to your stuff. There are a few enemies that just decimate you within seconds, so it's still important to avoid enemies if you don't know you can fight them. As for achievements, I only really did 3 things of note today amongst trying to figure out how PvE is supposed to work. First, I killed enough spiders to make a bed for my temporary base. I'm dying a lot, so it's nice to be slightly closer to my place of death. Hi Kyle! I also got enough iron for a full iron set, which I'll try to use so I can explore the caves further and without dying as much. And finally, I found some cool chests filled with loot that I cannot actually open without watching an ad. Something I can't even do because of the ad blocker, and you know what, I think I prefer it this way. I opened up the coordinates to see that I was only 300 blocks down. Apparently this game's caves go down over 2,000 blocks, so we're extremely close to the surface at the moment. I was trying to find more info on where this game has diamonds and the world height limits, but Minetest currently exists as a legacy project for the Luanti engine, meant for other Minecraft-like games. Off session, I did some tests and it's very much real. Not only does the world actually go down that deep, but diamond and other rare minerals are only found on the layer 1000. And the deeper you go, the more minerals you find. The rarest mineral is the maze block, found on the layer -2000. Then at -3000 I found a bit of lava that's apparently rarer than the rarest block. Anyways, eventually I teleported down to -30,900, and that was the depth of the world. It took me like 20 minutes to go down 300 blocks, so descending 3,000 so I could get diamonds and maze was probably going to take like 5 hours. This is ridiculous and it scares me from a game design perspective, but with that information, I decided it wasn't worthwhile to search for more resources on the ground at the moment. Meaning the actual session was mostly just me going up, getting as many resources as possible on the way. It was a shame because the maze lamps that I used for creative mode exploration are super neat. They're just needlessly expensive in this world for no reason. I guess I should also note that there's different types of world generation when you create a world here, so maybe in some it's a little more worthwhile and more common. Remember, there's no enemies or armor, so not even for those purposes does any mineral I get help. It's entirely decorational and maybe getting better tools that are faster. I made a bronze tool by combining tin and copper, really expensive and worse than iron despite being harder to get. By the end of it, I had like 35 bronze and 99 iron, which yes, stacks in Minetest do go up to 99. I got pretty far upwards and hopefully we get out of this hole tomorrow. For those feeling like this game wasn't enough like Minecraft, Here's a creeper face by the developers. I didn't know until after finishing the 2 weeks that you can actually change the size and direction of any block in Boima, where everything works on its own little grid based on the block dimensions that you choose. Henceforth, why I'm just messing around with it like an idiot without really getting it. This world isn't anything special, by the way, just a bunch of bears running around, and they occasionally pick up these super bright lamps and run around with them. It's definitely meant to be a test world for the game's basic mechanics and AI. Back to pasta, I'd increased the number of pastas in the field by clicking on a lot of trees. This was an absolute clickathon, but after that and some puddle making to add some variation to the textures on the floor, I was almost finished with pasta land. My light meatballs weren't actually cutting it, so I added a few of these John creatures around to serve as the inhabitants of the place. They live here now. This is exactly what Italy's like, dude. After going back to World 1, I was pretty disappointed. The game is starting to show an amount of repetitiveness. I did try not looting any enemies, which does make dealing with them a lot easier. There's plenty of resources around without needing to loot any enemies that hurt you. Health is definitely your most limited resource, hence why I tried finding as many fountains as possible. The problem then becomes the few enemies you cannot kill, especially the screaming creature I found here that I didn't have the misfortune of encountering last time I was here. They killed the enemies for me, so that's the positive. It's actually quite funny to see enemies fighting each other in this game. Just look at this. It's actually kind of adorable. The negative with these screamer guys is that even an explosion to the face does nothing to them. So how do you solve this problem? Run the fuck away! Alright, it's time to get started with the copper age. I'm sure nothing bad will happen or start happening to me that's gonna delay this. You chop some wood, you make some clay molds and cups for melting the hot minerals, and then you put them in a nice hole in the ground with grass and wood. All stuff I've gathered and have plenty of. Let me just stop for a mild snack. Is that a wolf? Oh no. No, but stay back! Don't get any closer! Ah! No! My spleen! I don't know if this game gives you some sort of grace period the first few days, but up to now I thought this game didn't have any fantasy hostile mobs like Minecraft, and even now I imagine that wolves are pretty uncommon creatures that you're supposed to just run away from until you're into the Copper Age. That couldn't be more wrong. Meet the Drifters. Okay, this one's really freaky and kinda hard to see. Let me light it up for you first, but second, once I got my nighttime fire started, you know, the main goal of the day before the wolf decided to bite off my head and my heart and my mind, that was all successful, but it does not keep drifters away, so despite being mostly unable to see the first one, this one, I got a really good look at. Oh, of course it killed me. I went from seeing 0 hostile creatures to getting attacked by 2 wolves and 2 eldritch creatures in the same span of 20 minutes, which honestly changed my perspective on the game. I found it relatively relaxing before, and this change made me a bit more paranoid, mostly because these animations are amazing, so it's genuinely distressing. My main concern wasn't that though, I was actually worried by the game potentially being too difficult to learn. You can tell I have no experience cause I defaulted to the knife instead of the spear during combat, and that's only one example of things I could have done better. Regardless of that, waiting out the night in the open like I was doing became out of the question. I was not very productive today because of all that, only managing to make a clay mold for the Fox blade. I mean, I really wanted a weapon to defend myself better in the future, but making this mold is probably my biggest mistake in the playthrough. On that matter, island fireplaces don't get hot enough with wood. You got to make charcoal, which is a process that is a bit more complex than a simple kiln. It took me longer and required way more space. There was no denying it, I was gonna need to reframe my approach to the entire game going forward. Right at the start of the 10th attempt, I found a great structure with a steel axe, and next to it another cave like the one from the other day with a golden pickaxe, way faster than my past runs. I was starting to look decent enough to skip several weapon tiers. I could mine most of what I found in this cave too, especially mithril, which seems to be the highest tiered material I could harvest. I figured I'd make a strong weapon out of the mithril bars that I made by nighttime, and that's when I realized a horrible truth. You need an anvil to craft weapons. Having the steel axe did help a lot. Enemies went down easier and I didn't even need to swing around so much in order to win. Though I did take quite a lot of damage. Not only did I make it through the night, but this time there was no enemy tailing me. It was time to turn the money I got throughout the night from the monsters to open up some of the chests that actually required money. And hopefully they give me something or other that can actually let me make an anvil to turn my mithril into real tools. I thought perhaps I needed a higher tier of wood at first, but before I could gather any real data, it was too late. Enemies swarmed me in the second night and I wasn't able to swing properly. The 10th fractal was the most painful one so far. Look at what they did to my little neck. With everything connected, Yes game, I get it. With everything connected, it was time to mix and match the smelters until I could process all of the ore into bars without needing any input. Before that, it was important that I broke my legs at least once. It's not a Minecraft clone if I cannot break my legs through being stupid. Oh my god, stop it! The sad part is that I had run out of storage hoppers given by the game to get you started. These hoppers let me interface with my conveyor belts and machines to move stuff around and process it automatically. When I opened the crafting menu, I could find the recipe for hoppers, but not one that used any raw ingredients. Not gonna lie, that you motherfucker here! Is this what you want? Fuck you, asshole! That meant I didn't do almost anything today, and I did not figure it out. Instead, I followed the tutorial, which did show me a few nifty things like being able to throw torches or a method of placing conveyor belts that's considerably faster than manually placing each. But that's all for today. This game is really kinda slow when you're trying to figure it out without using a guide. Okay, should be good to remove— oh, for fuck's sake! Scattered around the levels are these treasure chests that let us get some free items such as food and minerals, but most importantly, they also give us fragments. Collect 3 of these and we get to visit other worlds with different vibes and aesthetics. I think the most interesting thing that happened today is that I fought an orc until it died. Everything else is just me joyfully collecting materials and threes and fragments until I ran out of chests. Headed back home and made 1 chest that will at most slightly help with organization. Look at how small this shit is. And it's really expensive too. Alright. I really wanted to play this game, but playing it is extremely annoying because of how insistent the game is about being a survival experience. That would be cool and all if not everything in the game killed you or ran away, as I spent easily 60% of my time getting back lost items. The game is insanely stingy with food and the mobile control scheme is terrible. Attacking enemies was unpredictable, it has bad knockback or none at all. The temperature mechanic is not really fun, the stamina and status systems only work to have more hidden stats that only inconvenience the player. It's essentially an environment that doesn't invoke any of the feels of Minecraft, whether it's the project making and creative skill employment, the feeling of discovery and quirk, or even the feeling of relaxation. I was considering keeping this one another day, but I'd spent the entire 20 minutes just mining and probably dying to some random enemy in the caves that didn't get pushed back from a single attack I got to do at 2 centimeters of distance. The past 40 minutes of me playing this game have been me respawning and getting my items after something stupid killed me for no reason. And it's such a shame because I know this clone is super beloved by people. I wanna give it a fair shake. Yet more than anything, this feels like a toddler's idea on how to improve Minecraft. Adding thirst and temperature and resource for food to rot. Minecraft is not a game about survival, and this is why. It's impossible to be creative and have fun when you're just chasing the ability to exist. I guess if you're a fan of classic Minecraft, you should give it a go. I specifically played SurvivalCraft 1, but there is a sequel which I've heard good and bad stuff about. I'm just not about this kind of deal. Dirt. Ragdoll 11 came and went due to just bad RNG. I found no structures until the very end, so I just kinda let it happen. But Attempt 12? Oh boy, Attempt 12! My new strategy was to find villages, now that I knew that villagers were pretty inoffensive unless you open exactly that one chest. Instead, I spoke with them, and what I saw blew me away. For a measly 75 coins, I can get myself way stronger tools in day 1. On a game where you have to haul ass, that's a golden opportunity. With the regular wooden axe, the one I've been dying with all this time, I knew I had to make the night count. It was time to go full swing. To be fair, I also did keep a sharper eye on the little chest scattered around with all the upgrades. Jumping higher and running a bit faster helped, but upgrades like higher damage and faster health recovery did almost all of the work that I needed as I slowly got better at swinging. By the time day 2 came, not only had I defeated any potential enemies, I had enough money to actually buy a sword. Just like in Minecraft, villages here are super stacked. Scattered around all of them there's these barrels that have wood, bread, wheat and coins, the latter being usable to trade with villagers for these strong items. That alone can get you well ahead. I spent 2 days breaking barrels, opening chests and killing any additional enemies I found for their coins, and by day 2, not only did I get myself a stronger steel pickaxe to go along with my sword, but I actually became quite good at swinging, only taking damage occasionally and keeping a lot of my stamina. And that's when I got to minute 17, end of session. Despite having plans to end Mock today on day 6, I was forced to let it continue for just another day, come hell or high water. The didn't began nicely except for the fact that I was more paranoid, but also deep in thought about what I wanted to do. It's true that the outside is dangerous and I constantly find myself hungry, in part because I've been neglecting easy sources of nourishment thinking they weren't actually that good, but also because I was basically living like a nomad. As I was collecting these red Mario-ass mushrooms that I probably shouldn't eat, I began to ponder away. Humans most certainly figured out to settle down before they figured out that they can melt strong rocks they found on the ground if they just made a really hot hole in which to reshape the minerals to create a stronger and more sturdy tool. And so, making shelter became my new focus. With all the research research it entailed, primarily that in order to make farms, you're going to need fertile soil, which is only located sometimes around the world. If I find some good soil, I can absolutely build a base there. Then a wolf hit me from behind, and it wasn't in the nice sense of the phrase. Wolves aren't the only thing I have to look out for. Other creatures are sometimes hostile, and I was curious about a little strategy you may easily recognize from another very popular game. The pillar that doesn't work against wolves because Vintage Story has slight performance issues on Nvidia GPU sometimes. So I got my items back and locked out and back in order to slightly reduce lag. As you can see, a wolf was ready to maul me immediately. I paused the game so I can show you in a recording what's actually happening, but when I unpaused, the wolf just kinda let me walk away. I guess the AI broke a bit because I opened the help menu, which only soft pauses the game, and though I know it was cheese that I don't plan to use again in the future, this time I'll take it, baby! After about 10 minutes of touching grass in-game to prove that I am not critically online, I finally found a mound of medium fertility soil and settled down, ? With the sun coming down, I started making at least some form of rudimentary shelter using logs. I marked my house on the map and figured I'd walk to the woods when I needed wood, since the environment was super pretty. The problem was that I didn't have nearly enough wood for a 2-block squared house, and I had to hurriedly dig some dirt from the ground and use that to complete my shelter a la Minecrafter's first house circa 2011. But wow, finally, after 2 days of consistent death and weakness, I managed to sit down somewhere for the night on a warm fire, not starving and with no interruptions. Just me, the guides, and an endless night to be waited out. The final mining session for now. So once again, this mostly involved me dying to the bad PvE and hoarding resources. I moved to Iron tier right at the start, but that didn't help much with the PvE. I made an exception today. I turned off the ad block because it may be modifying my perception of the game. I also wanted to try actually watching ads to loot the lucky blocks the game's been offering me occasionally constantly, as well as the chest I found around yesterday. That loot wasn't too bad, actually stuff I'd need to continue mining down here, now that resources are really starting to appear. Look at this, it's full of iron and copper and I was mining all of it. The ads weren't actually all that annoying, by the way. Sure, I feel like the rate at which the game forces ads on you is a little too high, but I was surprised how much gaming I got in. Most ads remain optional. Hello Kyle. Okay, I'm all mined out. Next time I'm going out there. Been playing for 2 hours and I barely just now learned there's a desert next to my house. Out of the cave and back home. Of course it took me a hot minute. I know I put up a sign that straight up tells me how to get home by just pointing in a general direction, but the fact that it was night out certainly made things more difficult. I only really could see properly whenever a firefly happened to spawn. The worst part about this was definitely that I did not have the coordinates of my home, which is how I usually locate myself in Minecraft. It's true that I played enough to have like the ability to engage my general sense of direction towards my destination, and I totally recognized part of the area, but my little base area in this playthrough is inside a hole that from the exterior is impossible to notice. Instead I noticed this neat little cave and I marked it, then went about my confusion towards what I thought was my hole. Turns out the hole I was trying to find was also very pleasant, but certainly not mine. And when I turned around... So here's a funny thing about this game. Water does not work the same way it does in Minecraft. I'm very much the kind of player that always is trying to jump into water for some reason, and that bad habit took its toll right here. As you may recall, I should already know this from way back in session 1, but I'm playing like 10 Minecrafts at the same time.
You as a viewer probably don't remember that I pointed it out. Imagine me,
Who's been stuck in this. You really start to get confused and forgetting stuff when you play something that's intrinsically familiar to you, but never quite the thing. It's a subtle and subdued insanity that isn't truly present until it suddenly shows up. Very peculiar. Funny enough, I found my base first and my items second because I basically overshot my base. You know that cave I pointed out? It's slightly over 50 blocks away, so this whole mess could have been avoided. Anyways, there's my corpse, which I took home with me as a memento. Man, it's nice to be back home. I seriously want to build something here, so it's time to start racking my brains. The hole grows. All hail the hole. Explosions feed the hole. Our bodies feed the hole. The hole is holy. The hole is one with us, and we are one with the hole. When it grows, we grow! Going to Dungeon 2 with more health and a new strategy, which works well. The Reanimated enemies throw a stick on it, but having all the extra health keeps me relatively safe from everything, except the Weeping Angels. You cannot take these guys out with your gun or your knife, and they do deal extra damage. They're also capable of jumping up and down floors unlike every other enemy in the game, and the worst part is that unlike other enemies, they don't engage in enemy fire. Enemy fire makes everything easier because, well, the Reanimated end up taking every other enemy in their vicinity out. I found some enemies fighting here, and it's so funny how, like, they're just going around in circles shooting each other like Tom and Jerry. The other interesting thing I discovered is that dynamite can be exploded by shooting it. I was trying to get this enemy to see if maybe I could permanently deal with it, but all I ended up learning was that you can make your own little shortcuts. Given enough dynamite though, there's no need to respect the layout of the level, and you could just ignore that and get to the end. By the time I got to the 3rd floor, time was over and the mood shift did not inspire confidence. I straight up backed up into a corner to cry. Here goes dying right away tomorrow. The game has really opened up now that I figured out how to make furnaces.
Tons of recipes in this game are locked to their specific work tables, and I figured this out just today, which is why CubeCreator segments have been a little short. The game really should have told you this, but going forward, we're hopefully gonna start seeing what this game is actually about.
Though inventory space is still tight for some reason, very Minecrafty, not gonna lie. With a clean inventory and a fresh mind, I explore the beach world which I unlocked yesterday. The place is filled with coconuts and volcanoes. I also harvested some corals because they were pretty and colorful. I also saw this pig fall in lava and die. That was gruesome. Remember, my mission here was to get iron so I could maybe make more chests to have an inventory that does not inspire hatred to my soul. But once I was done in the mines, I got ambushed by a couple of orcs. This one guy got stuck in a corner, meaning my runaround strategy was neutralized. I had to run away at literally 0 health. How the hell am I alive here? Spent most of the day just looking at the text box handbook thing again, but I did manage to... You know what? I'm just going to ignore you. I found the thing that you use to craft, which is next to my base. I noticed a little on the logistics about how you actually continue the game going forward. Mostly all of the crafting recipes to make basic conveyors and hoppers that I can then use to make machines that get me components for more complicated things. I made 2 worlds, then explored 3 other worlds. And I came to the conclusion that Boima is really cool, it's weird and I fuck with it heavy. The 3 worlds I explored were a snowy skyblock where you can knock down trees to bridge between the islands. This world is actually rather big since I ended up in a completely different place after dying. I was at a snow place and then I was at a place with no snow and a lighthouse that I tried to climb. It was, again, dreamy and weird, but I kinda am there for that. Another one of the worlds was a super detailed space shuttle where you get 1 friend and no space. It was kinda cool, but mostly kind of isolating. You can't help but feel bad for leaving the other bear alone when you leave the world. The other one was a maze that you can easily cheese, but it's mostly meant to clue you into how building more complex worlds in this game works. Then I created my own 2 random worlds trying to make something that looked somewhat surreal. This lamp experiment wasn't very successful. I wanted it to feel like a field of stars, but the colors didn't mix as nicely as I wanted. The other world was a lot more confusing, so it's better I don't try to explain it beyond, whoa, nice duotone that I used to make the background for the Boima segments. However, we got some bad news. Muck was next on the chopping block, but that game extended into tomorrow's play session. This means that Boima was the weakest link, which is relatively expected. Boima is still an alpha, one that just got a Steam release today as of playing, but like 3 weeks ago as of video release. This is to say that it would be cool if you all checked it out. I simply ran out of things to do without downloading more worlds, and even then my misadventures here wouldn't be the most interesting. I hope the developer keeps updating the editor with features such as the new ones I mentioned, and making the customizable grid for block placing more evident for players since I only found out about it after the fact. I guess I'll also appreciate some real survival gameplay for you to do in these worlds. Actual objectives that can turn Boima from a cool tool into something people actually would use to make games. I see so much potential in this, and I'll keep an eye out for development. Who knows, maybe a year from now everyone's playing Boima. Wouldn't be the first time I covered something well before its prime. Okay, I kept it in all this time, but I must do it. I gotta do it. Boima balls! I'm sorry, I apologize.
Bear.
Hey, why delay it when you already know what's up and the format's starting to show? Muck's gone today. We're having an early funeral for it. The eulogy is gonna be performed by someone who has never even seen the game. Take it away, person who I don't know who you are, but you are someone.
I'll always remember my good friend Muck. We'd go mudding in his truck and he'd get stuck and I'd be like, well, fuck, Muck, we got stuck in your truck. And he'd be like, well, my wife's home with Chuck getting fucked, so I'm getting cucked. And I'd be like, damn, what bad luck.
After continuing my strategy from the day before, I figured out I had no idea what comes next. It was like that plankton meme, this is me right now. Mastery of the swing strategy let me keep on getting monsters to leave me alone, while finding villages, looting them and then trading with the villagers let me get stronger tools. The problem is that I didn't know what tiers to go after that, and enemies were clearly getting stronger, with more health and speed, such as these two wolves who, would you look at that, they're using the swing strategy! I kinda just roamed around on day 4 not knowing what to do, because what I needed at that point was to learn, which is part of the reason why I ended up taking this game out. The learning curve is a little annoying. It's not hard, it's just annoying. Obviously I gotta be even better at the game and being speedy in order to get strong enough for the new enemies, but whenever I wanna learn anything from this point forward, I'm essentially forced upon a long wait until I can actually start gathering new info. And this would be the case for every run. Fine at first when runs were 7 minutes, but this final run ended up being 31 minutes, like that's a lot of time to spend just replaying and redoing and redoing and replaying things that you've already done. Still, I just kept on going. I got more upgrades, but of course, Night 4 had a boss called Gronk spawn on me, and he absolutely kicked my ass. I fucking hate dying to the shitty Twitter AI, but that ended the game. To off and final ragdoll. May you know in death what was in store for you on that ship you wanted to board with all your heart. I'm proud of all the mechanics that I figured out on my own, even if it took 7 days for me to understand that mushrooms increase the bar corresponding their color and shit like that. Surprisingly, the game wasn't bad at all. I could even keep playing if I didn't have to play another 6 games for this video and also not enough time for the length of a run. My brain is too small to get better at it fast enough. But wait, no. We still gotta do the rest of the games today. Figuring out how to make hoppers meant it was time to reorganize some of my setup in order to accommodate these new tools and my familiarity with them. Of course, this allowed for the creation of proper assembly lines that can turn my tin ingots into plates and my copper ingots into cables. All things you'd need to create more machinery for more complex assembly lines that let you create more machinery for more complex assembly lines. In order to make a lot of these, you first need to research them in the research facility, which I noticed yesterday, and then you need to create them using materials such as these lightweight machine housing plates, which I then promptly proceeded to automate since it's relatively simple. Now's when the problem arose. A lot of these machine parts require the creation of cogs that can only be produced with the third starter mineral that I haven't even found yet. Iron. That meant I had to get up on my little ass and hunt for this coveted resource. The way you search for it is by using this scanner that can direct you to your nearest unknown resource, but it doesn't really tell you what the resource is until you scan it. You need to first be in front of it, scan it, and then research it. That's kind of a problem. You end up digging around searching for stuff that's completely useless and then running around trying to find whatever else the scanner detects, which is hopefully not useless. I was unable to find anything today. Instead, I got a transmission from ground control. I wonder what they're trying to tell me. Nah, just kidding, this one's fake. Took a bit longer than expected, but eventually I explored this floor. At first it was oppressive, but it's exactly the same as it was before. After a bit I got my confidence back. It is true that there's more pressure being put on you by the ghost fellows. That can get out of control, but nothing I couldn't manage. And so in a very swift manner, I explored the entire location. Anyways, look at this room down there. This is the most fucked up shit I've ever seen. Just an entire room filled to the brim with weeping angels. As the constant pressure from the screamy guys pushed me into it, things quickly turned for the worse. How do you deal with this scenario? Simple. You die 3 times in a row. Time to run it back, I guess. I went back to level 1 and did it all over again. There were a few differences. This time I got some jumpy boots that let you jump higher, in addition to a talisman that will let me shoot cubes out of existence. But nothing too important happened besides that. I guess maybe that I found this one room all dusty and empty except for a pointless talisman that reportedly does nothing. I decided to leave my tomorrow self deal with this issue instead. The hull craves, and I provide. I already talked about rocks, and when I started serving the hull, I sure thought those would be your greatest enemy. I was wrong. Lava is the spawn of Satan. Not only can it only be removed with those explosions, but it also extends beyond its bounds whenever it can. If you break an adjacent tile, it is going to flow into it. That means that if I blow a small hole next to lava, I'm potentially creating more trouble for our goal, as an organization that is certainly not a cult. Our strategy is fine so far, but if the lava gets out of hand too much, we're going to be in serious trouble. Off I went in my jelly little ass to explore the land. First I went to the left, but there was a bit of a lava wall, so I decided to check out the right instead. There aren't too many unusual things around, except for villages and whatever. I made sure to collect any and every sapling so I could supply myself with wood in the long run near my house. Replanting is important, you guys. I also saw a UFO, but I'm not sure you can even do anything with it. For a moment, I worried the world was endless, but nah, I eventually got to the end of the world. Just took a pretty long while. There's a bunch of biomes, and there's also these guys that are like kind of running around you, and they try to steal your money, but they can't get me. They can't get me, I'm too good. But beyond that, I found just villages and caves and a few different animals, but nothing out of the ordinary. Lucky for me, I learned that you can sprint by complete mistake near the end, which made it a lot faster to explore this new world and end the day by surfing to celebrate. Author's note, be careful not to pick up Eldritch X by mistake. Today I found out the game has a stage creator and fucked around in it. Reminded me a lot of Mario Builder 64, which made me sad because I didn't enter the competition Simpleflips did for it recently. Oh well. I made a funny neon checkerboard that looks bad at night by spending a lot of time figuring out how to copy and paste stuff, then proceeded to lament the lack of an eyedropper tool. A surprising amount of these games don't really have that, and I'm not sure why. It's super useful to me, but I don't know, maybe I'm just in that subsegment of players that use it a bunch and it's not actually that necessary. The stage I made wasn't anything interesting because actually taking the time to do that would be rather lengthy and we don't have that much time, so instead I plopped down some cheese boiga and went back to the normal game. The little break reminded me that you eat to heal in this game, and so I promptly had my revenge on those orcs, and it was every bit as horribly gruesome as you would expect from a cubicle Minecraft clone with a toony art style. Also, this game has mimics. Big, slaughtering mimics. Somehow, and very traumatized, I barely got home without crashing headfirst into the floor from exhaustion. Insanely laggy day for some reason, most likely because of the Windows update that keeps destroying my computer from the inside out. I spent the night in my new temporary hut, turning more of it into dirt as the night went on so I could keep the fire alive, then hunkered down to read the scriptures. I found out that you can actually make a bet to skip some of the night, and while it's true that not all nights are dangerous, it's still safer to just use the night to read or sculpt. So I did a little of that, going out only to collect the resources I'd need to actually make that bet. Here's when I learned something terrible. Remember the sanity meter at the bottom of the screen? If you take a closer look, you may notice that all throughout my night, this bar has been steadily decreasing. The area I had picked to make my house was temporarily unstable, and therefore unviable. The search would have to continue after getting some sleep. I packed up my stuff and continued to search for a nice place with good earth and peace of mind. Come night, after a day spent running around and trying to eat and whatnot, I did find a friendly trader named Vlad, who seems to have his shit together way more than I do with furniture and boxes and real wood in his house, so I decided to hunker down for the night with him. I'd say the day was a complete waste, except for the fact that I did find an item called the Ito slab in the handbook and clapped very loudly once. So I churned around in my brain for an idea and decided I wanted some red blocks. Looking through the recipe book, I noticed that deserts and savannas have plenty of red stuff. I ended up deciding I wanted to find some acacia wood and redstone. That was a big mistake. After creating a map so I didn't get lost like last time, I went off to explore a lot of the world. A few biomes, yet the only acacia I found was some stupid bushes that don't drop any saplings. There are a few of these basic dungeons scattered around, and they do sometimes have chests in them, but the only good thing I got from the entire dungeon was some mossy stone in case my build ends up using him. Before I knew it, I realized I'm 2,000 blocks away from home, but also, how fucking nice does this place look? This vista is amazing. Okay, now we can do it. Bed. Oh. I chose not to take the thing, because my build was great. And going off from such a good build, I'd be very stupid not to think of some new strategies. Hey lizard rock guy, guess what? Fuck you! I discovered I should carry some dynamite with me and use it to blow up the stone lizards, removing them completely from the equation. Not only was my gun able to ignore most locked rooms, but I could also get the screamy slime stuck in a hole. Though, it's quite expensive. With that setup, I was nearly unstoppable. There's one little problem. This messed up room isn't just a random room, it's actually the hard-coded ending of the area. That means you're forced to go through here. Surely with some dynamite I could deal with a few of them, right? Make it way easier. It would still be difficult, but you know, there's a bit of a problem about that. Pheromone to explosions. Only in this room, cause fuck you. Now, a smart player would probably go around the upper floor and use their nifty little gun that avoids all problems to avoid all problems altogether. You are watching the Smash Tomatoes YouTube channel, however. Well, that was stupid and terrifying, but luckily I only died once. And the library does have some food hanging around that I could use to heal up. Righty, no time to waste. Let us see the third realm before we end the day. Well, at least the atmosphere isn't that oppressive. It's green and there's little Cthulhu guys running around shooting at the fucking spiders that I hate, but now they are big. I don't know what's happening here, this sucks and I'm a little scared. And it seems tomorrow, I shall make my last stand. Before journeying back home, I stopped down for a bit of fishing. I don't know why. There is a cool minigame, but I really didn't have the time and inventory space to be doing this. The journey back itself was much faster, since I had laid down all the groundwork to just move back home. For some reason though, going to the edge of the world feels super long, but getting back is rather quick. Going took me like 20 minutes, but returning took me like 6. Even with me slowing down to kill some chicken for their feathers. The PvE is terrible, as I've established literally in every segment of this game after day 3. So I figured a bow and some arrows would be really helpful. I mean, enemies literally cannot kill me if I never get close enough for them to even hurt me. Hello Kyle! And on that note, this is a great spot to try out the bow. Wow, that does no damage. Goodbye Kyle! The idea is that you make arrows of higher tiers, but I honestly couldn't care to bother. You do get 16 arrows per mineral, though I only really tried it after the fact so you cannot see it in the footage. At the moment, I saw it better to just be super careful and stand back when fighting. Okay, it's time to lay down some plans. I want to build a small base and get even stronger equipment. Unlike with the other games, my base here should be more like a mansion than like some sort of food item. Mostly because this game has no slabs, making organic shapes a little less interesting to me. I kinda knew I wanted to use this pretty red wood to make the borders, but that's still a bit off. For now, my priority was food. Relying on mob spawns didn't seem like the best idea, so I decided to build a little potato farm. I figured Minecraft rules and made it like so, but we'll see if it works. For now, I ended up rage quitting at the sight of an ad. This was betrayal by my ad blocker, which was on today in this session. Oh yeah, I also leveled up today, and now I have 4 hearts, hooray! So in order to progress in this game, you need to make increasingly expensive workstations for different stuff, such as kitchens for food or tailoring stations for clothing and pets. And this is a reminder that making a bed is our current goal with this game, because we already made the chest. It just happens to be relatively expensive. I also may have unlocked a new goal. Look at these spiky boots. I think these would look cool as fuck on me. We still need iron, and I figured the mountains were going to be my best bet, so I went down to explore this new area. Traversal of the mountains is rather bothersome because most mountains have 2-step inclines, and as you've probably seen, the fob in this game is like really up close. It's kind of uncomfortable, just wall, wall, wall. The solution was super simple in the end. You could just press a button to go into third person, and that literally makes everything so much better except placing and removing blocks. I won't argue these mountains are pretty, but their iron content is undesirable. The only cool things about it are the ice at the top and the way fights are somewhat super epic for no reason. I don't know why, but this game's controls and visuals make everything so delightfully immersive in a really peculiar way. I've already talked about pigs dying gruesomely because of the way things happen to be coded, and so I find it pretty amusing to see how a lot of this game's storytelling comes down to its tone and style. Fighting enemies encompasses that well. Like, I don't feel any danger getting picked up by eagles, I am the danger, but the silliness in the presentation breathes so much life into it. And then I killed this cute ass sheep and felt bad about it. For the last 5 minutes of the session, I had a choice. I could either go adventuring these cool mineshafts I had found, where maybe I could find the iron I very desperately need, or I could go collect some poop. You know I'm choosing the poop because I have the mentality of a 12-year-old. Does the game seem suddenly different to anyone else? It feels like I'm playing something completely different, so weird. The grass is a little weird, but everything else looks just mildly off. This is what I wanted when I had the idea for this video, I'm not gonna lie. Cue the copyright-free cover of the song I put down to walk home. This was sorta surreal in a sense. The world is so empty and devoid of anything to do, so while it's still zen, the feeling of something missing basically permeates the entire thing. It's like something is missing, but in a good way, like playing a horror game without the antagonist, or being in the back rooms with infinite supplies and like 7 people that you know. Just comfortable in a way that things usually aren't. Once home and without the acacia trees I originally set out to get, I reconsidered my build to use any of the resources I actually had around. Besides, with the game's new look, the acacia looks a lot more orange and a lot less red, so it's alright. It was about time to begin building. I could have kept exploring for the resources for sure, but you may have noticed that this game doesn't have a run button. You kinda just are walking everywhere, and since there's nothing to do, exploration is a bit slow and boring. I think I much prefer to do what I can with what I got than do nothing trying to find something I'm not likely to find. New warning just dropped. Today was an iron finding mad dash. I began digging holes to find materials, but I only found rocks, disappointment, and hypothermia for a bit. Wasn't long until I found this weird creepy cave with the most off-putting music. Completely cosmetic, but it did freak me out a little. The alien plants made me think perhaps some sort of creature was gonna hatch, but thankfully, they are just plants. The point is that I eventually found some actual iron in there. I needed to scan it so it doesn't say it's iron, but trust me, that is iron. Does anyone else find it funny that I can find iron in Minecraft within like 5 minutes of starting a world? Yet right here I have multiple games where my main problem is where in the world is Iron San Diego. On the expedition, I got a warning about the potential attacks to my base, and so after getting stuck behind an unloaded chunk for a minute or 2 or 3, I began looking into that. An attack is apparently imminent, but I don't really trust this. Doesn't matter, I left the game today hoping this wouldn't be the end of us. After spending the night at Blad's bed, I woke up to monsters outside, which I fought off as Blad was just kinda fucking standing there. All's good, I get it, we ain't know each other that well and the first thing I did when I met you was sleep in your bed, but man, you gotta start looking out for your fellow humans. I hung around for a bit longer and then I ate a funny Mario mushroom I collected the other day, but they were bad and I died. The end. Oh, the dream that I had last night melted into my pillow. So I respawned and realized your bed does not set your spawn point. Meaning that if I lived there with Blood as I originally thought to do, I would find myself traveling 500 blocks anytime anything happened. Not very fun most likely, so I tried finding somewhere closer to live in. The problem, medium fertility soil is pretty uncommon. I spent around 10 minutes looking for it while scavenging for food and avoiding wild animals. This just wasn't working out. The solution? By rubbing my 2 brain cells together, I figured out that if I can't go to the soil has to come with me. That's it. For the past few days, I just forgot that I'm capable of digging up a bunch of resources and hauling them wherever. TerraFirmaCraft was super limiting to the player, and I still haven't shaken that off. Yesterday when I made the roof of my temporary hut, I was straight up concerned that it was gonna fall on my head and kill me like in that game, but the vintage story devs here just kinda knew they had to make compromises for the sake of fun, and I guess I have to learn to trust them a little more with shit like this. On that matter, I found a nice spot with neutral stability and started my home. I still had some doubts. Perhaps it's a better idea to have my house even closer to spawn, but maybe I should just make a choice and move out if anything arises. It's just taking forever to actually start playing the game because figuring out how to settle down is being annoying as a new player. This is a learning experience. It will get easier if I try this again in the future and I can learn from my mistakes. So for now, even if this isn't the right place, it's time to stop looking for perfection and look at reality. We are going to build a shelter here. At first I intended to flatten the ground, but night was starting to come, so I just set down a few things and made another hut kinda like the one from the other day. Mistakes are what teaches us to do better. Humans have always learned what to do and what not to do through this method for as long as they've been around. And at first they may have eaten the poisonous mushroom and died pathetically, but the other guy who saw that looked at his own mushroom and said, "Hey, perhaps let's make sure that whatever I'm about to eat is not going to kill me." The hole has grown too large, but not large enough. The hours grow, the sacrifices must be made. Extra playtime, yes, that's what we demand. Observe as the hole grows, as it expands. This is what life is about. All hail the hole! All hail the... Oh, the server crashed. I'm healed! Okay, Infiniminer is not a very complete game. It's lacking a lot of features and is uncomfortable to play a lot of the times, but it does have something from Minecraft that's insanely important to this day. While I tried growing the hole, I came up with silly strategies like these TNT chains in order to destroy the lava. And the whole goal to mine out the entire world, while something I should have done differently going layer by layer to prevent aggressive lava spread, was a goal I came up with on my own. That's the appeal of Infiniminer, and of course, Minecraft as well. While Infiniminer does tell you what it wants you to do, the ability to have fun because of a goal you set for yourself is a large part of what makes video games just fun, even if the game directed you to those conclusions. This is an aspect Minecraft has excelled at since its conception, and that has never changed, even if the game is nothing like it used to be. This intrinsic appeal, where you find something you enjoy doing because it's fun and just have a space to keep doing it to your heart's content, that is the key to why Infiniminer beat so many games that had more content and personality that we've seen in this video. The reason why this game inspired Minecraft and its mechanics. So while we're saying goodbye to it in this video now, its impact will never be forgotten. It's a perfect way to see why Minecraft's design works at a fundamental level, without any of the fluff and years of familiarity. Infiniminer is what Minecraft is when looked at in a vacuum through a spyglass. Perfect in its own way. Bomb. Oh, let me show you something awesome. Fridge! Wow. That reaction is colder than I expected. I started off by setting out to the first world in order to locate the contents of this map I had gotten 3 days ago. It led me to a little village I somehow missed while walking around the world, but on further thought, it likely appeared specifically because I traded for the map. The village has a bunch of resources I could pick up if I needed them. After a barbaric fight with a giant bear who was honestly rather cute, I considered keeping him in a cage. The village's loot turned out to be exactly the iron I needed. Not all of the iron I needed, to be honest, but enough to make a few chests where I can organize my inventory a little, and also let me make an anvil so I can create better tools than the stone ones. Once that was done, I went to the mountain world again in search for those mineshafts, but for the first time since we started this, it happened. I died. I literally just made an iron sword for this exact scenario and forgot about it, and this is my punishment. Losing a few items and for some reason getting fat? That's right, this game has a weight mechanic that basically fat shames you for having a bad diet. I'm not actually sure as to why I got so chubby, cause looking back at the death, I was gaining the weight before the mimic killed me. Even if I didn't eat anything, it's such a weird and specific mechanic too, but no biggie. Lucky for us, mineshafts are pretty wide, so after collecting my items and feeling bad about my weight, exploring the mineshaft was not really a problem. Especially not a problem in the magnitude of the fact that none of these mineshafts have iron, because of course. The mineshafts are kinda like a little maze that's generated a lot less interesting than the Minecraft one. I am however happy to announce that there's no poison spiders here, just good old random spawns. The real reason why they made these shafts is for these pretty light cubes I spotted around. I tried my best to collect as many of them despite being fat because they are pretty and I like colored lights. This game fucking chews through time just like Minecraft 2. By the time I finished up, I realized I was 8 minutes over the time. This game is surprisingly looking like a good contender for the 3 survivors at the end. Spent 30 minutes building this bridge! Yeah, I'm not the best builder, not gonna lie. Getting good at building in Minecraft requires a lot of time, so even though I can somewhat try to build something good because I have a lot of that experience, I ain't gonna pretend that it's actually fantastic. The building process so far has also been simple. I tried to put in some block variations and gradients in the palette to make it look like it's got some sort of history, and I did realize that the building mechanics are well recreated. Slabs sometimes lag or glitch, the directionality of blocks is slightly harder to get right, but it seems you can still do about everything you could do in Minecraft, just slower. It's gonna take a bit to finish this structure, but I think it is gonna happen. Turns out the green level was not scary at all. At first I was pretty slow and paranoid, so that expecting enemies that are harder than the last areas, but most of the enemies ended up being pretty easy to deal with before they even have a chance to attack. I almost feel sad about using my bullets to deal with them, since I started to run out of them by the end. Most enemies do not attack you first. These Cthulhu aliens are in fucking Dreamland most often, and there's no bullshit weeping angels to drain your health. There's these eyes on the walls that can hurt you, but a little bit of attention makes them kind of useless, and the big spider fellows do split into smaller spider fellows when you kill them, which but everything is practically a non-issue to deal with. I think the idea was that the floor would be more open than the prior ones. With less walls, enemies would have better visibility, but it's mostly an advantage to you because you can just visit every part of the floor without having to go around anything. You also have space to run, which makes a lot of enemies kind of useless. It's only problematic if you get spotted by these weird blobby fellows that are extremely loud. You're going to notice them from a mile away. There's this one room I found that's just filled with random floating blocks, and it genuinely feels like the people who made this level just deadass gave up on making some of the rooms. I do like all the rooms with trees though. The best part about this realm is definitely the aesthetics. Green is not a creative color and I don't love it, but I ended up kinda loving the way this place looks. Oh yeah, the ROM is called something like Rlia, but it's Lovecraft, you're not supposed to be able to pronounce it correctly. I did learn one thing, which is that you can actually disarm tripwires to get resources, and I can't help but think about all the money I missed out because of this. I had no idea this was a mechanic and just kinda dodged the wires, but it would have made both this and the last realm way easier. With the 3 souls in my possession, I returned to the library and placed down the final soul, opening up the way to the exit. Unfortunately, This is not the exit, but rather the way to the fourth and final realm, the Endless Library. A hodgepodge of everything we've seen so far. Also a challenge I am not at all prepared for, considering I ran out of resources by taking level 3 way too seriously. Some enemies like the Cthulhu guys are easy to rush with a knife and keep yourself safe, but others absolutely take their toll on you. This one guy took away 6 health in our 7-second tussle. I took a pause and recentered myself, knowing this was gonna take another day so I could properly do it. But what if I wasn't? You've seen throughout this video that I'm not particularly good at games, so I'm hoping tomorrow doesn't end in a short but disappointing disaster. Let the building of the household commence! A rather uneventful session, but one with tons of learning and progress. I started outlining where I wanted my house to go and how tall I wanted it to be. One bothersome thing about this game is that while it lets you place blocks in the background layer, you're not allowed to remove them unless you're standing in front of it in a foreground block, which takes a bit of a moment to sort out and clean. After that, I put down the walls that I wanted in the basement and began looking for any sort of trapdoor-like item that I can use to make one of these wooden floor basements that you see all the time in US television. They were a bit expensive, but nothing I couldn't manage if I took a quick mining trip next time. For the walls, my idea was to have something smooth and beige, such as this very conveniently textured smooth sandstone, which should be easy to get considering I got a desert next door. It actually takes quite a bit of time to collect them. Ah! Werewolf! 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 Imagine my surprise when I found out villagers trade resources like the exact walls I was trying to grind for at a relatively low price point. That definitely awakened me to keep a closer eye on what villagers give you, because it seems kind of overpowered. And whoa! Hey, not dying every 5 to 10 minutes actually let me see this game has a mechanic where your character gets sleepy, so I took to bed and decided to mine for the missing resources tomorrow. You can see a tiny upgrade in the house before the end too, and also, I think I miss my Kyle. This session was great, except about half of it was spent searching for food, while the other half was spent digging for dirt to make my house. I wanted to use nice wood, and I even wanted to create it like lifted up 1 block so enemies couldn't get me as easily, but that's still further in the progression to what I can do. Instead, I settled for using cob through mixing dirt and grass, which is not that bad, though kinda super ugly. I had to lock myself in a bigger, albeit still ugly hut for the first night. I extended my house in the morning, but was still short on resources, and assessed what my main issue is. Food. Slime, I keep constantly having to spend a lot of the day just collecting food I find while chopping wood so I can survive the nights. I tried spearfishing like a true caveman, but the fish spawn less than wolves and tend to occasionally no meat. As for other food sources, I have this unwritten rule where I say I don't hunt rabbits because rabbits are fucking cute, and also it kinda feels like cannibalism for some reason, I don't know. With no health and starving, I was forced to harvest and eat the remains of a hare that was attacked by a wolf. Not quite a rabbit, but I still felt really bad. It truly is eat or be eaten. Does this count as a funeral? Now the scriptures say that I should actually be cooking stuff for better nutrition, which I absolutely agree with, and to do that we're going to need some ceramic utensils. Utensils created by setting holes in the ground on fire to cook ceramics would just happen to be the next part of our progression. I'd be essentially solving up 2 problems in one go. Clay crafting went faster this time since I have special tools that can help you make things faster while still needing you to take a moment to create a tiny voxel. After a good sleep, I finished expanding my little household, then went out to collect wood and dirt to finish my construction, while also collecting other resources. It was about time to get serious with my tools and just work towards the objective. However, after cutting it close due to hunger and wildlife attacks multiple times, I got back home to see my house is basically a convention center for bears. Okay, just 2 of them, but still, bears absolutely love my shitty house, probably more than I do. And I want to note, this happened twice in the same session. Bears seem like great climbers to me too, and I was not going to risk it, so I just threw spears at them and hoped for the best. After actually landing a spear hit, a skill that I just started acquiring now, the bears freaked out for a moment, but left me alone. I then finished my house and lined up the edges of it with logs in order to make it look, acceptable? I finished the day by hiding from the bears by closing my doorway, which in this case is 2 blocks of cob. But at least I've got a bunch of food in the bag to last the night. Finally, some progression. Tomorrow will be time to make a clean and fire up some quality of life items. Shout out to this game for having a metal pipe sound effect button. After the attack scare from yesterday turned out to be a complete fluke, I spent the day sorting out problems with my current setup. For example, I had no way to split my metal ingots from the machines that turned them into more complex elements like cables and plates. My tutorial coal deposit also ran out, so I was forced to seek a new one and build extraction and transportation for all of those resources to keep supplying my operation with energy. At first I made a splitter that seemed to work, but quickly realized that it didn't actually because the game needed the conveyor belt splitters that are called turntables by it, which is kind of baffling. They also have this terrible sprite that looks like an unrelated record player. I don't know why, this gives the player basically no information about the block. Anyways, I also lost sight of the iron deposit, but well, who cares? I think it's time to cut this game's existence in this video altogether. I haven't even defended my base once, which is the point of the game apparently, but I played for 4 hours. I feel like I've barely gotten through the tutorial, so it's kind of bittersweet that I have to drop this game now. Yesterday I figured Eldritch would go, but I'm about to beat that game. Literally the exact opposite scenario, and even then, in the 36 minutes of tomorrow's session, I wouldn't have gotten very far. Progression in Fortresscraft is extremely slow for a first time player, and it immediately shows some of its problems. Mainly, the game is horrible at communicating its basic systems to the player, and not just because the UI is ugly all things considered, but the in-game guidebook doesn't seem to have the right info. Progression is either unclear on theoretically basic stuff, or outright too slow to hook me. One thing I didn't understand is what a player should do in order to move their resources a long distance. Just giant conveyor belt structures all over the map? What about upgrading the amount of energy my base can hold? Or even that whole ordeal about splitting resources I just talked about? Why was that so hard? So this is not a bad game, but it is too slow for this format of this video. I think it would need a little bit more time. This game is something like Harvest Moon to Stardew Valley, but for Factorio in a sense. Inspired by what came before it, but not remotely as great as the modern darling of its genre. And that sadly means that while this game has the sauce, it's just too mild to work as a sit and play type game. This is something that needs cooking time, and unfortunately I don't have enough. I'm not an oven, I'm a microwave. It's with a heavy heart that I bid you adieu, Fortresscraft, because I really wanted to play more of you, if only to see what's up. It's getting kinda hard to remove games since I have ongoing projects in all of them. There's always something to do, so we're gonna start seeing a few projects left unfinished. If that bothers you, that means you're invested in these games, and you should totally give them a try yourself. My story is cool, but yours is about to be generational, and much better for you. On a final note, apparently there's a sequel called Fortresscraft Phoenix in the works. I hope it's fire. Bet. Deeper and deeper down I go, getting resources for my future home. But exploring the mines is getting more and more dangerous. Despite no progression on the house, tons of resources were gotten, and I killed several very unusual enemies like these slimes that turn into lava, or these funny creature guys that each give you a chest and its key. The rest of the events weren't that interesting, just regular mining. It's not even worth a sick musical collage time to the tune of Broke Fiend by Bomb. At least all of these resources have somewhere to go, and I did also get a few of the next tier of materials, apparently ruby, for as little interesting things as I did. It's kinda crazy that I still found myself entertained throughout. The most boring part was burning stuff, but you can pay a small fee to permanently make furnaces faster. Look, I have 40 minutes of footage and I'm using as many seconds of it as I can without having to edit all night. So, stuff that's, I'm saying stuff, look at all this footage, I got a lot of footage for this video that I'm not using. Chill day, but there was no snow. Finished exploring the mountains and used my magic staff to get back home after collecting a ton of lanterns, which I don't really plan to use, but I can't leave shiny pretty objects behind. Disappointed in the lack of iron down there. Trust me, I looked up and down and all around before doing a beat turn to the beach world. Here's something pretty cool. You can tower up from your house area to these cliffs in the background where you can no longer place blocks. I saved before messing around, but you can actually soft block here super easy. I guess it's not quite a soft block since you can just wait until you die of starvation, but that would be a pretty large waste of our playtime, which is limited. Brand news and not stuck in a hole, I was tired of having no iron, so I left to break multiple pickaxes mining iron in the beach world. I also explored both the surface and the caves of the world, so I could find more treasures with more worlds. The caves in the beach world are massive and very open. They have a lot of space for enemies to appear in and they're flooded with water. So while it's a tiny bit dangerous, it's also really easy to find iron and whatnot from a distance. All that walking did make me lose a ton of weight, and now my character looks like he's got an eating disorder or something. Back home, first thing in the agenda was to actually use the wool I got from the sheep I still feel horrible about slaughtering to make our first goal. A bed! That's good and all, but like, what is my goal now? What's my new purpose now? In the meantime, turns out one of the lanterns I had was fancied by the Lord, so much so they gave me even more land, as only the shoddiest of rulers would. I'm not gonna use this land in this playthrough since it's a lot, and building in this game feels kinda sluggish because it's really slow and the movement is not as simple as Minecraft's. Ooh, maybe if you had an eagle for a pet, but I'm not sure you can actually ride your pets. Which, on that matter, I did find a zoo in town during a moment of downtime. Turns out there's a pet system in the game that I'm not sure how it works, but I'd kinda like to use it. For now, I completed the tablet that can take me to the next world, and put the game down for the day. Yes, in the middle of a storm in the tropics. I'm raw dogging this bitch. Once I reloaded the world, much to my delight, the bears had displaced themselves and allowed me to go out and collect all the wood I'd need for the day. You know, a few days ago with the wolf that just kind of ignored me, Vintage Story seems to save the world state and the position of the mobs on some sort of delay, such as putting them at a location they were earlier. If that weren't enough though, I did happen to stay inside all night making bowls for the purpose of cooking tools that I'd need to cook food, while also looking into the usage of grass and cattail in search for some sort of storage item. My inventory was starting to be a problem. It's small and stacks aren't as big as they are in Minecraft for tons of items, such as logs that go up to 16 per stack. Initially I just thought to keep it all with me, but now that I actually live in a house somewhere, I think putting down some stuff would be very useful. Technically you can just toss things in the ground and I don't think they despawn. You may notice this poisonous shroom that's been hanging around my house, which I only keep because it somehow finds its way into my inventory every time, but I'm not about this lifestyle, man. That's other advantages to containers too, but I won't really get to experience them here in this video a lot. Ta-da! Even though it's small, I made myself a chest. The morning was mellow and fun, with an awesome jolly-ass song that continued playing even as I fled for my life from a bear and a wolf at the same time. Classic caveman. And this was also after a sneak attack by a mystery creature I still have no idea about. I think it's that thing in the background shooting me, but I'm not sure. While it's true that a lot of what I'm collecting is the same resources, such as wood, stick, dry grass, etc., this game does have a lot of stuff. For example, I have been finding tons of this plant laying around somewhere, and though you can't make anything that helps progression, you can actually make yourself some medical ointment. Patching myself from the heavy damage I took felt really good. I'm starting to get used to having a home and it's actually pretty nifty. Anyways, I put down everything you need to make a kiln. Grass, sticks, and a bit of timber, good enough to reach high temperatures that can turn wet clay into dry clay. This doubles as a light source, so I technically do not need to make a fireplace, but I still do it because I end up spending nights cooking before I take to bed and pass the night. An action which I believe doesn't actually speed up the clean's cooking, by the way. And so morning came and I decided to be a genius and open up the ceiling of my hut to confirm it was daytime. And not one, not two, but 3 fellows fell right into my house and basically threw me in the fucking Thunderdome. The most surprising thing wasn't that I won, but that I won with 0.1 HP. When I opened the door, I saw exactly why this had happened. A temporal rift framed perfectly outside my doorway. Rifts, which are the spawn point of drifters. So afraid and trapped with no food, I ended today in the same way I ended yesterday. Terrified in the corner of my house and hoping that tomorrow I start like today. Oh, and the clean should also be done by then. I'm excited for food. In real life too, I'm hungry as fuck. Spend the day pummeling through resources. Stacks going up to 99 is pretty comfortable. It reminds me that Minecraft would improve considerably if they just made stacks go to the hotbar whenever you deplete one, but that's not here nor there. The trade-off that makes this game system worse is that you actually need to craft every stair shape separately. Time came to sort of build the shape of my home. I'm having a surprisingly tricky time getting an organic tomato-like shape for my house. The doorway and floor weren't too tricky, but the sort of balloon shape of the walls that has to extrude out and back in was somewhat challenging, especially because I wanted to have these weird shaped balconies to the side. Again, I have no shame saying I'm a pretty inexperienced builder, but it did took me more than a bit of trial and error, like enough to feed a villager breeder or something. I found myself placing a single block, then coming back to the front to see the shape, rinse, repeat multiple times. Gotta admit, some of the shapes I made in the process were really dumb in a cool way. The house is far from done. Even after finishing the fun-shaped exterior, I will still need a few things, which I've jotted down on a little shopping list for me to get next session. Trust me, at least the front of the house will be finished. No promises about the back, but everyone knows great builders only do the fronts until they're told the server's closing in 2 months. So, where did we leave this yesterday? Ah yes, 1 health. A little bit of fear and a little bit of caution let me know that this library was gonna take some patience, and a tiny bit of foresight too. This game has 4 endings as far as I know. One requires all of these ash items that I didn't collect but found, even the third that I didn't mention. The other is done by getting through the snow area I explored briefly in day 2, and the last 2 are done by getting to the end of the library. Naturally you'd think you can just rush to the final room and save yourself the trouble of finding most monsters, so I wouldn't be in too much trouble, right? But that gets you the bad ending. You need to find and light the candle in each of the 3 levels of the Endless Library in order to get the good one. And so, I whipped through the hallways with caution, low on bullets, lower on health, and slowly conquered the Endless Library. With the 3rd candle lit and enough keys to bake a cake off, I went on to the final room of the library. Tall, imposing, and with a small jumping challenge that I just frankly shot my way through. And thus, I could finally complete the ritual that's been going on in the background. Apparently your attempt to escape the library almost causes all of Eldritch hell to be let loose upon Earth unless you don't do this ritual, and you never see any of this happening, it's just on some book. Anyways, observe as I perform the final No. That's the ending, just some text on a book. Okay, that's kinda lame. You just click on it, and it also has the balls to just shame me for spending 3 hours to beat the game, what the fuck? Eldritch is a short one, and I managed to do it all by playing no more than 30 minutes every day. And to be fair, calling it a Minecraft clone kinda comes off as unfair in the end. It's a dungeon crawler with small rock-like elements and a voxel art style. There is a way to get a pickaxe in the Halloween level that allows you to mine the map entirely if you want, a strategy I only learned about while looking for the endings online and trying to see how you're meant to do that room with the rock lizards without imploding onto yourself, but that's about as close as Minecraft as this gets. And I really added it to this video as a sort of wildcard to have something that involves less mining and crafting. It doesn't scratch the Minecraft itch in the slightest, no creative building, and objectives are established by the game's design entirely, so while I don't recommend it as a clone to Minecraft, I can say I do recommend it as a game. I kinda wish the developer had more levels that are shorter and gave players more items that can change their playstyle. The ending is kind of a letdown. I feel like a sequel that has more items and synergies would make for a fantastic roguelike, especially if the enemy variety was increased. I'm just wishing less of these guys could be managed by stealth. Kinda sucks they never get to modify the environment too, that'd be so cool. At last, the world is safe and I'm free from the library. GG's, bar. So before I started playing, I noticed there was an included game manual from the menu and I went in to see if it's got anything to say about pets. Particularly how getting enemies to like you works. Once you've got enough medals, they start showcasing hearts and following you. I really like these flying cube fellows. So a large part of the session went into trying to get them to be my friends. You may also notice that I'm somewhere different. I went to this fantasy world I unlocked yesterday, with all these colorful trees and giant platforms you can only access by climbing up spiraled clouds. The top of these is kind of a lame forest themed space, but harvesting the nature for all it's worth is basically my middle name. There's tons of clay here, as well as golden apples. Apparently you can eat them because they are coated in gold. Still quite Minecrafty conceptually. The loot in this world is also pretty nice. The chests with bad loot tend to have like some cooked food and even iron ores. New goal. Even though they like me sometimes, they eventually lose interest and you become forced to kill them in what feels like a big betrayal scene in a movie every fucking time. I basically slaughter the entire race in my attempts to befriend one of them. I can pick them up and carry, it is an option, but once I'm holding them the movement becomes restricted, so there may be something or other I don't understand. Anyways, the Lord wants some of my golden apples and as a reward gave me a crap ton of land to build on. Okay, at least I can say a golden apple for this amount of space, that's a worthwhile trade, not like why did you give me so much land for fucking blue lamps? You can tell by how I'm playing this game that I don't really plan on building anything here, but look at how massive this area is. This is like when you flatten the spawn chunks of your... Oh, never mind, Mojang just patched that out. Turns out the Lord is actually a traveler by the name of Pizza, who may be a reference to a prior game, but let's be honest, nobody played them. I do admit I am more curious about them than I was when I started this video, but I guess that would be for another day. Maybe. My reward for such great service to the throne is this legendary sword, passed down from traveler to traveler throughout the ages, to honor and bless the travelings of the next generations. It has 250 durability and it's absolutely breaking under my care. Though enemies did in fact leave me alone when I loaded the world, that's about the most mercy the game gave me today. Shit was fucking insufferable! I spent most of my time trying to chop a few trees, only for either a wolf or a bear to kill me on sight, and the game was laggy to add fire to the fun. I think some of it has to do with me staying put in one place, which not only allows for more spawns to happen, but I'm also not running around the world in a way where any wolf or bear who spots me is considerably far away by the time their AI tells them to start chasing me. Regardless, it was genuinely becoming annoying and ridiculous. I died about 6 times in about 45 minutes of session, despite the fact that I even made a shield to try to fight back in the worst case scenario. The shield blocks damage, but my computer's performance definitely takes a toll in this strategy. The worst part is how often the events played out like a bad joke. Near the start, this enemy who should have left 5 minutes ago just showed up from off screen to bitch slap me to death. Then this wolf decided to comedically rest behind a bush before coming out, ignoring the animal that's directly in its face and comes straight to attack me. Here's me getting jumpscared by a boar and you can see my eyes bulging out of my face from the mouse movement alone. And at the very end, this bear jumped off a cliff to sit directly on my face, snapping my neck and killing me instantly. So that's why, despite being the longest play session in this video so far, I did absolutely nothing. The coolest thing about today is that there's this random ass Bigfoot sighting at the start of the recording, which I guess may be useful for the devs to figure out why mobs are displacing themselves when I load the world. On the whole thing about food, once the clean was done, I made the coveted soup. only to learn the attributes of the stuff you use to make the soup stick to the meal. Again, it's these stupid fucking Mario mushrooms which fuel the 250th weekly theory about Mario just being high and nothing in the games being real. And what did I do about the soup sucking ass and being useless? Fuck it. I ate the poisonous mushroom soup out of spite. Looking back at the footage, man, isn't this a great summary of what depression feels like. Trying for ages to accomplish a goal, constantly running into similar issues, not learning from those mistakes out of stubbornness or maybe an ideal, watching everything crash down, and then psychologically punish yourself by wallowing in the failure. This is supposed to be a humanity simulation survival game, not therapy. Right, I guess I should mention, all the wood collecting I'm doing here is for the purpose of making charcoal, which has become our primary objective now that cooking in cleans is starting to happen more often. I actually collected a good amount of wood in between every death and wolf attack, more than I imagined, but we still need about another extra forest's worth in order to make it work. The name of the game super applies today. After sorting out my inventory and all the stuff I got from yesterday's mining session, I flipped through the recipe book to see what I could do. From teleporters, which are awesome, to a GPS with a map. There's a surprising amount of stuff in this game. I spent 15 extra minutes playing just cause I was entertained. Downside is the way I play mobile games is with my head against the table, so now I have a violent headache. I promptly ended my mining session and set up to progress further, knowing I was rather behind on my goals for this game. First, I chopped and replanted a lot of wood outside my house. Then I traded for a fireplace and made a few glowstones that would look awesome in the palette of my house. This was really only an excuse to pass time as I waited on something that is going to be my main objective today. I wish to set out in exploration of the left side of the map, the one I didn't explore because it seemed too dangerous. Having leveled up and after all my potatoes were done cooking, I figured I was ready. And holy crap, is the left way bigger than the right. I spent half an hour exploring this, wondering if it even had an end. At first I collected some sand, but ended up keeping it at one stack because I didn't want to clutter my inventory in case I found anything cool like saplings or food. This rock golem looked friendly and shy, but this is why I have trust issues. On the snowy biome, I made some shears to collect some wool that I may use for my roof in my little abode. And meanwhile, I was very careful to set up a path that will make any traversal in the future a little easier. I also need to confess I threw an egg and it landed on a bunny and I cried. Anyways, after a long journey with tons of enemies and path formations, I did it! I got to the end of the map and celebrated on the beach. Again, this is as much celebration as I'm getting. On the way, I also happened to find some guys who just happened to trade some endgame items in a village close to the ocean. You know, those technological endgame items that require you to do a bunch of mechanics that I haven't even shown off in this video. So, I guess I got a jetpack now, woohoo! And so I went off to complete my shopping list. Additional wood I'd need, white sand for the ground, anything red or brown that I could find to make my once tomato now onion more oniony once it was built, and though I briefly got lost in the return, I went on to continue construction of my mini base. I put in some music, fixed the floor which was the main reason I went on a trip at the start, and began creating a circular shape in a Minecraft clone. Allow me to present the results. I decided to use a few features exclusive to this game, like these bottles or these fence connectors that make nice bridge ropes. I decked out the house with a tropical look that still reminisces a vegetable. It turned out a little awkward due to using blocks that are affected by gravity, and though I wanted to do a red to brown gradient, I had to settle for some dithering. It's just kind of a shame that I didn't get to use the maze blocks in this game, nor the minecarts. I simply ran out of time. Again, maze is 2,000 blocks under zero. Insane. And this is a great build, but well, that's that. Though I talked about the emptiness of the game, this is honestly one of the most faithful recreations of Minecraft. It's missing a lot of systems, but it also adds a few others to round out the problems. It's just that the game having no creatures and no real progression really leave it at something more like a sim builder. It takes forever to explore the world because you can sprint, and though that does remove the pressure of hunger mechanics, it also makes exploration kinda dreadful. For as much as the game tries to be Minecraft, I feel like it's stuck in between design philosophies. The way Minecraft changed between beta 1.7 and release 1.0 incurred a big design change from a game about survival to a game about creation. A philosophy that's only gotten more remarked as time goes by. Current Minecraft has many design problems that we're not really here to discuss. The only times it really feels difficult is when Pickling Brood happens. And mine just feels like it's decided to implement the call systems for a survival game and then unfortunately made it about creation. And that's not a horrible disparity, though it isn't better, it is unique, as I said many times, sand. But scratching the itch pretty shallowly is as far as it gets. If Minecraft's a back scratcher, this is like quickly frotting your hands against the itchy area. No, not that kind of frotting. It's fine, it's slime. It's just watered down Minecraft. Whew, that was tiring, I need to rub my eyes. Wait, no, what happened? Ah, this is the ugliest thing ever! My eyes! My eyes! No, don't make me do this! No, bad! So, down to the final 3, the winners in a sense. I spent the day playing not 1, but 2 hours of each game. These 3 winners have shown that to some extent they have the right to stand as equals with Minecraft. Beyond just managing to create a similar experience, they also have their own little personality and styles. They are not just copies, they are evolutions upon the concept in a delightful way, and I recommend you all 3 of these games. One's free, the others are $20. Even when it comes to the pricing of these games, they showcase a ridiculous price versus entertainment ratio. So, let the final day begin. I turned back and ran home leaving everything set up. I took the liberty of trading and setting up a teleporter for whenever I get the urge to come back here again in the late game, maybe I could do it faster. Funny enough, I didn't even use the jetpack once in this entire hour and 40-minute session. I wanted to do 2 hours, but I seriously started to get dizzy from the position I was playing it. My head did not like it. But frankly, skill issue. Getting back itself only took me like 10 minutes though. It seriously felt really long on the way, but the return was kinda whatever. Again, I don't know why this happens. I did try and completely fail to tame a rabbit because I wanted it to be like a little surprise, but I didn't manage to make it work, so I just relegated myself to finishing my little base. I came guns blazing once I got back to main camp, turning every resource into stuff I'd use for my house. You may notice my sword is worse for wear, and I figured I could always just make an iron mill to fix it, right? But apparently, using it requires an ad, which I can't watch because I have the ad blocker on. And you know what? I think it's better this way. Anyways, oh my god, I get to say this. Cue super fast build mode! And that's the house! Minus like 6 parts of the roof. I gotta say, I thought it was gonna take more resources, but with a bit of trading and all the grinding I've got on footage for no one to see but me, I was able to get almost all of it done. The wonders of 2D voxel games is that building is far easier when you don't have to consider the third dimension. Hold on, Kyle? So I think I managed to make something pretty decent, though it doesn't top Casa Cubita, the Onion, the Hole, and Pasta la Pomodori. It does easily beat Tomato Bungalow, Conveyor Born, the library because it's not custom made, Tool Corner, and a cave 2 times. I didn't name these. I even got to paint the doors and decorate it a little. I bet if I had an extra hour or 2, I could get the entire place furnished, but for now just having a bedroom, a kitchen, and an attic for storage is more than good enough. Very satisfied with this simple house. Enemies around this game seem to get tougher the higher level you are, and that just goes to show my final takeaway for the game. This is kind of wonderful, especially for a mobile experience. Not only are there almost no bugs or unexpected shenanigans with every system working as intended, but the actual gameplay experience is wonderful once you turn off the ads. Heck, even with ads it's tolerable. This is one of the best mobile games I've gotten my hands on in years. The developer clearly liked their project, and though some systems like combat leave something to be desired, and I wish I had more control of stacks in my inventory besides being able to like craft in bulk, which I only discovered on the last 20 minutes of the game. Point is, it definitely scratches that itch for a game that you can boot up on your phone and play in the background. It's fun, it's lightweight, and I absolutely recommend it. Anyways, to end I wanted to make some extra furniture for my home and went out to basically deforest the entire world. Guess I must have angered Mother Nature because she literally came up to try to beat my ass. I got my sword out and tried to fight it, but within seconds it had me down on my knees half a heart and I had no option but to flee. Replanting the trees didn't help, and before I could even get away, I fell in a hole. Half a fucking heart and the only thing I can do is fight. What do I do? Fuck! New sword! This game was more of the same it's been, even with a cool awesome sword. I started making work tables and went off to explore the fantasy world to find any chests that can help me get to new worlds. It seems that the more worlds you explore, the more rare resources you can find and collect faster. And my theory was very right. After trying to make friends with the Eye Guys and falling for 30 minutes in the fantasy world, I went on to explore the next one, a big desert. And the cool thing about this area is that the treasures here are found in golden chests that I can actually pick up and take home. Much better for storage. Here I tried to make a friend with some eagles instead, but it went bad. Soon enough, I left to explore the snow world and see what's up in there. Turns out there are slopes, yetis, and most obviously these towers that I pointlessly climbed multiple times. This world is way harder than the prior ones. I actually died multiple times. Yetis rush into you and melt your health, and the temperature of the area has the potential to freeze you if you don't recurrently find some sort of shelter. And yet, the most dangerous thing isn't the living stuff, but it's the fucking ravines I fell not in once, but twice. Actually no, 3 times. Lucky for us, these ravines are filled with new minerals I hadn't collected until then. They connect to large cave systems deep underneath that have iron, steel, lapis lazuli, and most importantly, diamonds. I made some diamonds at 137.43, god damn it. Ho, I mined a bunch of resources here. I don't even know where you turn diamonds into diamond blocks, but I am not about to leave an item of such pedigree here, even if there's like 5 more tiers of alloys included in this game's progression. I also did this funny thing where I climbed up a tall-ass tower, died near the top to some weak-ass enemies, climbed all the way back up again, and all for these stupid crap items. A bit bothersome, but not too much, because in this excursion, I managed to collect everything I needed for the spiky boots. They have their uses, sure, but I just wanted them because they look cool as fuck. Look at me, I'm cute and awesome at the same time. This is everything I spiritually strive for. There was another goal I intended to achieve today though. I can't hide it anymore. I have a crush for these eye fellows, so I went back to Fantasy World in search for a different type of goal. For a while, I thought that to make a friend you had to get them through the portal, but simply luring them close and then throwing them through did absolutely nothing. I figured that perhaps the idea is for you to pick them up and walk with them, but the caveat is that you have to match or surpass their weight. In the end though, I never figured it out. I just grabbed one of these little fellows and the game outright told me, "Hooray, you're friends as fuck, let's go train him!" And by training, the game really means making them some apple juice and throwing meat, donuts and juice into their face multiple times until they like you. Introducing Blood Drink! It's supposed to be a pun on Roderick, but reading it back, I'm not sure it really works. Point is, he's my friend now, and we go on walks and love each other. Come on friend, let's go throw some chickens off a cliff! With my new drip and friend in hand, I got back to town to find the entire village was standing around a mysterious hole in the ground, one that appeared while I was away. Everyone was perplexed and afraid, unlike me who's killed many monsters and traveled many worlds. And so, it was my job to check it out. Deep, deeper, a few blue lights lighting the way. And then below, a secret society? This is... no. Redstone? Ah! Okay, let's take a moment and run this back. In 2023, the movie Hundreds of Beavers came out. It's not only one of my favorite movies ever, but it's also probably the funniest movie I've ever seen. It follows this man who begins the life of a hunter in order to wow the girl of his dreams. I recommend this movie, but for this video I only want to focus on this moment I remembered, where the protagonist falls down a hole intended to catch wildlife, the way humans did it so many years ago. From last session, it's easy to tell the wolves are getting on my nerves, plaguing the area outside my home and making my life harder than it has to be. And so, I set my plan in motion. I dug a few holes around my house that were deep enough for my spear to reach, but not shallow enough for the wolves to reach me. Soon enough, it was nighttime. As I let the night go by, I decided to make yet another soup by using some proper ingredients this time, mushrooms that won't cause internal bleeding. I wasn't really doing it for the hunger it recovers, since the classic cattail roots I've been going for are, for some stupid reason, way better. I made it more so to prove to myself that I was still learning from my mistakes. Finally, some good fucking food, and not the only type of great meal I'd prepared today. Come morning, the hunt was on. I spotted some wolves outside my house and began trying to lure them into the hole. It did not go well. They are generally capable of pathfinding around the hole unless they decide to jump at me, but as I tried it more and more, I got better at luring them. At first I could barely get it to work, but then I got one wolf in. And then 2, and then 4! I basically trapped the entire population into this hole and preserved them so their meat wouldn't rot. I had so much meat before I started preserving the animals that I had to make a shitty pantry behind my house just to preserve the food a bit longer. Even though their meat is not usable in cooking, you can eat both their fat and their meat. In just half of the session, I had swiftly solved every problem I had and then some. Clean and peaceful around my house, food for the foreseeable future, and just for style points, I got to use all this leather to practically invent Prada in this universe. Food problem fixed, and it's time to do that goal we set about 5 days ago. It took its sweet fucking time, but we're finally here again. It's time to make a copper pickaxe. Step 1 was to make a crucible that will store or liquid minerals once they have actually melted over the flames, as well as molds for a pickaxe and a hammer, which will be necessary to smith even better tools later down the line. Clay crafting itself is faster than it seems once you start actually using the tools, but it does still take a little bit over one in-game day in order for the molds to be turned solid in a kiln. Step 2 was to process all the wood I've been getting all throughout the past few sessions into logs that I'll use to fill up a massive hole. I'm not joking, it takes 16 logs per block, and I need to fill 8 blocks at a minimum to make this giant hole for a total of 128 logs. This, with a little campfire and some insulation, got us ready to produce charcoal. Charcoal burns way hotter than logs do, which is why it's necessary. Logs cannot become hot enough to smelt the copper, which, talking about that, step 3 was to walk around the world and collect any copper nuggets that I could locate. I guess I also tried panning some gravel, but it was taking a little too long and was kinda boring as footage. By the time I got back, the molds were ready, the coal was ready, and the copper was plenty. It was about time to become a miner. Oh, okay, wait. First I need to spend some time looking at this rabbit in the sea because it was very cute. And then I had to go out at dusk despite the danger because I almost forgot I needed some tongs to pour the copper into the mold instead of touching the thing with my bare hands like an idiot. But then it was time to become the miner. Honestly, this game is awesome. For as much as it is a clone of Minecraft in many ways, it's also very much its own thing. As I noted very subtly earlier, I had to turn on keep inventory mode for this game because otherwise my experience would have been exclusively dying and picking up my shit. But like, that's also awesome in its own way. This game is not just like Minecraft in visuals, it's also got that same customizability. You can build some awesome stuff once you progress further in the game because of the main thing that's different here from Minecraft. This game's personality is all about humans' technological and cultural evolution. The sort of things you find in this game are well researched to the point where the different medieval styles of clothing have been put in as many different things you can do. Instead of being a fantasy, it is a historical simulation in the best of senses. Heck, even on the stuff it took from Minecraft, they found a way to spin it and give it its own visual personality and gameplay. The enemies here, which are obviously fantasy creatures, are also super unique in aesthetic and style. A lot more original in the sense that they're completely original fantasy creatures and they fit very well in this world. Not to mention their animations also look fantastic. If anything, I'm excited to play more of this game. Everyone's been waiting for Hytale to be the Minecraft killer, and though I don't think this here is going to be it, I feel like not enough people have put their eye on Vintage Story. It's well made, relatively bugless, beautiful visually, the soundtrack and sound design is spectacular, and all around, my biggest problems come to the difficulty being a bit too high and the performance issues making the game freeze periodically on my old ass setup. Vintage Story is as fantastic as they say. You should totally play it yourself. Knuckles cracked? It's go time! The copper nuggets were getting warmer and warmer, then melted. I carefully picked up the crucible and poured the contents down into the pickaxe mold. I put down the empty crucible and waited the night for the copper to re-solidify. It was time to finally enter the copper age. Wait, hold on, what's this? Pickaxe mold? Wait, no. What? Foxblade? What? Am I fucking stupid? I made the wrong thing? What even is this thing useful for? Specialized weapon to fight the unnatural. Great! Awesome! I made the most useless tool in the game by mistake. What's next? I'm going out for a walk. Oh, awesome! I'm going insane! No, this can't be fucking happening. I must be insane. I bet I could just walk out there with my shiny new blade and everything will work out fine. See? Perfectly fine. Hello, Coit. Isn't it a beautiful day outside? The sun is shining and everything is awesome. Look at this guy. Hey, Paul, you can hurt me because you're not real. Come on, I'm right here.
Hey, what's up? I turned into Markiplier. I want to talk to you about something silly, but
can we start respecting Cube World games? Not the actual Cube World, which I didn't feature here because like, come on man, it's not even related to anything. Minecraft clones will never be the real thing. Not even Hytale, if it somehow manages to get back to the hands of its original developers, will probably not do anything other than add a tiny bit of competition. And while comparisons between games of similar genres are perfectly fine and most likely inevitable, I think Minecraft's cultural impact should be used as an inspiration more often than it is. I get the feeling that a lot of developers don't do Minecraft-inspired stuff because there's a heavy stigma towards calling anything that looks kinda like Minecraft a clone of Minecraft, but as you can see from throughout this video, a lot of these games were widely different. It's expected. Most game developers who genuinely care about their projects will strive to make their product stand out, but beyond that, Minecraft should not be seen as the only title that can do certain things like a pixel grid. On the contrary, we should promote these games for their own merits and normalize the good features of Minecraft instead of gatekeeping them behind judgmental names. If every shooter ever was called a Doom clone, the shooter genre it helped originate would have never come to happen. Everyone would be busy pointing the finger at everything similar instead of enjoying the way each title brought its own little perks to the table. Or like if every Metroidvania was called a Metroid clone. Wait. Inspiration is a wonderful thing in art, one that I feel can often be misunderstood as plagiarism, but remember to take a step back, engage with the piece and think of what it wants to do, not as a Minecraft clone, but as a game of its own accord. What's good and bad about it? It's not about whether they manage to feel or copy Minecraft properly, it's about what they do on their own, because despite having similarities, if there's something all of the games I featured in this video deserve, is respect, as their own piece of art. Yes, even Cube Live with its stupid AI voices. See, I did not turn this video into a queer teenage romance story like last time. And if that makes you curious, you know what to do. Go watch that other video. No way! Did I just do 12 Let's Plays at the same time? 10-year-old me couldn't dream of this!